didn't see you there. I was just here in my enchanted forest, practicing my green screen skills. Hi, I'm Admiral Iddy, and you might know me from my challenge run videos. But I've always wanted to kind of expand my horizons a bit and do some long-form essays or just talking about old games. I'm still a baby YouTuber, so I'm still kind of discovering my format. I thought about just doing voiceover gameplay or doing the old me in front of a green screen. So, we'll see how it works. It'll be new for me, it'll be new for you. So let me know how it works in the comments. If it looks fine, maybe we'll do it again. If not, I'll scrap the idea and move on. When you think of the company Volition, you probably think of Saints Row and its unfortunate end. Or you think of Red Faction and its unfortunate end. But what if I was to tell you there was another game in their repertoire? A sister game to Red Faction that actually came out before Red Faction. A little game called Summoner. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I've wanted to talk about Summoner ever since I started this channel. And I could never get around to how or when. Summoner is a game I come back to every few years. And I played the crap out of it as a kid. And I remember loving it a lot back then. So, this recent playthrough I wanted to see, was it as good as I remember? Look, just bear with me. I genuinely do love this game, and I know all of you guys who are watching do too, but we have to take off the nostalgia glasses for just a second here and take a look at for the game and what it really is, and why nobody talks about it right now. This game is a boring, tedious mess, but I love it.
Bitch! I love you!
Summoner came out on the PlayStation 2 in 2000 and on the PC in 2001, just a few months before Red Faction. And that's the version I played on as a kid. I didn't even know it had a PlayStation 2 version until recently. So that's the one I'm going to be talking about today. There are a few minor differences between the two, like a few little quest bits and some equipment things here and there and some balance changes, but overall it's virtually the same experience, except the controls suck. So I have a whole spiel on dad games, a term that I use to describe the games your dad would bring home from a work trip or from the bargain bin at the Walmart or while he was on holiday, from another country maybe. Saw it for 15 bucks, saw a picture of a knight or a warrior on the cover, said that'd be perfect for my kid, and bring it home. And sometimes they were hidden gems. Games that might not have seen the limelight because they didn't have the same budget or marketing as other games. Sometimes they weren't that great. But now I have a new one. Uncle Games. Uncle Games rocked. Now, my uncle's from England and I'm from Canada, so we don't get to see each other much. But when he would come over, he would bring a stack of Uncle Games to play. The first time I met him, he brought over Medal of Honor Allied Assault, Battlefield 1942, Red Faction, American McGee's Alice, Summoner, and Clive Barker's Jericho. Like, those are some serious bangers. Uncle was cooking. So how do you play this game? Well, you're going to have to do a little fiddling, but it's available on Steam. You need to get a DX wrapper or some sort of widescreen patch in order to get it to work. Now, there are mods for this game, strangely, but the one in particular I wanted to highlight was the equipment balance mod. Apparently, it overhauls a lot of the systems in the game that I find frustrating, and I'm going to be complaining about. But I played this game as vanilla as possible, so I can get the pure form out there and show you all the flaws that it does have. I'm not relying on the modders to fix my broken beauty. So what is Summoner? Summoner is a Western CRPG along the lines of Dragon Age or Knights of the Old Republic, except without the story and characters. This game wishes it had Dragon Age's character system. The main gimmick of this game is that the main character, Joseph, is the titled Summoner, and he can summon from a wide variety of different monsters and beasties in order to help him, acting as a fifth party member in the combat. It's kind of cool, until it's not. It's got a pause function, attack rolls, cooldowns, you know what I'm talking about, but we'll get more into that in a bit. This game takes place in the kingdom of Medeva, and the main character, Joseph, we play as, is the titular summoner, or Sahugani, as the local Not-Dwarves call him. At all times in this world, there's somebody born with the mark of the summoner on his hand, which if you go by the cover of the game is some edgy tattoo. It's standard chosen one stuff. When he dies, another one is born. So Joseph grows up in the village of Siran, where he meets his Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yago, and teaches him the art of summoning. In order to summon, you need to have one of the rings of power. One of the rings of summoning. And Yago gives Joseph the ring of darkness. Now Joseph, being a 10-year-old boy, doesn't quite know how to control his powers, so summons the demon of darkness, which promptly murders everyone he knows and burns his village to the ground. So he chucks the ring down a well, tells Yago to piss off, and then flees to the village of Masad. Now way across the sea is the Empire of Orenia, which is a Japanese-inspired nation. Now, it's a little on the nose when you think about it. Medeva, medieval, they have knights, kings, dukes, and the like. And Orenia, or Oriental, they have samurai, oni, that kind of thing. It's a little on the nose, but I forgive it. In fact, this game was my first exposure to Japanese culture in the form of like samurai, katanas, naginata, stuff like that. It's a typical what-if scenario. Knights versus samurai, who would win? Like, do you remember that dog shit show, Deadliest Warrior? I mean, like this game, I loved that show when it first came out, but it was actually so horrible and the science made no sense whatsoever. But it was still cool to just see people LARPing basically as samurai and knights and Vikings and smashing dummies and pigs with weapons. I have to say right off the bat that this game has some seriously deep lore. Whoever is the writer or the writing team on this game, they were cooking really hard. There's mythologies, languages, thousands of years of history, gods, deities, hundreds of different characters. It's just a shame that it was told very clunkily in this game. Anyways, so in Orenia, the Emperor is usurped by an evil sorcerer named Murad, who wants to build a tower to the heavens in order to fight the gods. Reminds me of that South Park episode, Ladder to Heaven. But he received a Kung Fu Panda 2 prophecy that a boy with the mark of the summoner from Medeva will end his reign. So he goes full King Herod, invades Medeva, and starts murdering all the boys he can find in every village. The Renians are led by 4 riders. 4 riders of the apocalypse. A little on the nose, like I said. The Tiger Rider, the Death Rider, the Serpent Rider, and the Phoenix Rider. So this is where our game kicks off, in the village of Masad, which is under attack by the Orenians and the 4 riders. This is our basic tutorial level. We get introduced to the camera controls, basic controls, attacking, and like any other Western CRPG, it's got attack rolls, defense, parries, dodges that your character does on his own. But to keep things interesting, this game has a chaining system. See, instead of just sitting there watching your character attack, this game doesn't have a lot of abilities like in World of Warcraft where you can have friggin' 30 different abilities on your hotbar. This game instead has 6, but it has the chaining attacks. So before your character swings, a little chain will appear above his head, which you can right-click in this case, or I guess on the PlayStation, press a button, which will initiate a special move, which you can do in sequence as many times as you can keep the chain up. This keeps things a little bit less monotonous. Now, you can only chain with a character you are directly controlling, and if you got your chaining timing down pat, you can completely lock down an enemy and prevent him from doing anything. I just found that chains in the early game seem a little weak or useless, like chain push. Chain push seems to just shove an enemy, it does 0 damage, and it doesn't really open him up for anything. If you're already chaining, he's already not able to move, so I never found this that good. Neither of you gets to attack or defend or dodge or parry, so it basically just wastes time. It does 0 damage. It doesn't like push him off kilter so you can get a free swing in later. You both just reset as soon as the push is done. Now, before you experts in the chat tell me that push is the most effective move in the game, hour 47 in, when you find an enemy behind an outhouse jerking off into a pond, if you push him, it insta-kills him, I don't believe you, alright? And I don't care, to be honest. Push sucks. Get over it. And that's where the obscurity of this game is its downfall as well, because it's actually quite hard to find consistent opinions on how this game works. See, there's a few guides on GameFAQs. Now, GameFAQs, kids, is a website you used to go to read 700-page walkthroughs of your games. They didn't have YouTube videos back then. So all the different guides have conflicting information. Some are flat out wrong, some are inconsistent, and some disagree with each other. One guide in particular says that every time your summon dies, you lose health permanently on Joseph. And I think it says that in the manual as well. But that's just flat out not true. The most reliable guide I could find was written by somebody who actively hated the game and wrote it basically out of spite in order to get people through it faster. I kind of admire that, actually. So if any of you guys in the chat can answer, or if any of the devs are watching, please enlighten me. So yes, chains. Most of the time I just turn them off and do them manually as I need. Certainly do not put on auto chain, because your character will not follow the rotation and sometimes chain push 16 times in a row, doing 0 damage and just wasting everybody's time. Now you can pause the game and do abilities and cast magic from there, which works. So it's basically a bunch of dice rolls, whether your attack will go past his defense, etc. But even then I found that with maxed out stats, I was still finding with particular enemies that they would go on what I would call runs, where they would just pound you over and over, consistently hitting and taking your health from 1000 to 0 in less than 5 seconds. So you run through the burning village, killing enemies and talking with the first few NPCs. Now, this game reuses a lot of assets, especially NPCs. So in order to differentiate the important from the non-important ones, they have these little pink exclamation marks above their heads. Sometimes it's a quest, sometimes it's a shopkeeper, sometimes they just tell you a bunch of useless shit and move on. See, this is back in the day before voice-acted dialogue in games, other than the cutscenes. There's a lot of reading in this game. A lot of old RPGs used to do this. So if you don't like reading, you're not going to have a good time. It'd be nice to have voice acting, because some of these characters legitimately have interesting things to say. But most of the time it's just walls and walls of text about the seventh kingdom of Luxemfuck, who 600 years ago committed the fourth purge of these Nazians who ended up blowing the horn of tomfoolery in order to get water from the water park to pour into the pond in order to feed the demon of sexdustress in order to cure the disease of Felucians. And it's like, bro, you just wasted 12 minutes of my time. Here's your 4 sheep's bladders. Give me my 15 gold.
Well, thank you for that.
So we fight through the village and we come across our first boss fight. Now, every boss fight in the game does this. They have an intro and usually an outro cutscene showing the boss pulling out his weapon with the drums going, kicking off. Here you also get to see the character models up close in all their glory. See, if you're not a main character, you're just going to have a nice, flat, painted face. It ended up being a really easy boss fight, so it was a bit disappointing, because this is just a basic enemy that you fight regularly throughout the game. Speaking of faces, you've probably leveled up during this time, which brings us to your face. Jesus Christ, this has to be one of the ugliest character models for your hero I've seen in a video game. It looks like he got stung by a bee.
You old pasty bastard. Look at you, chump. You look sick, man. You look like you just walked up from ground zero.
It's not Tsar levels of ugly protagonists in the game, but it comes pretty close. It doesn't help that this game commits one of the biggest sins in RPG history. No helmets. So I have to give this game credit. There's actually quite a wide variety of equipment to wield and use in this game. You have swords, maces, axes, polearms, halberds, spears, and that's a big one for me because not a lot of RPG games have polearms as weapons. What's so wrong with spear and shield? It's one of the most commonly used equipment sets in history. You have bows, crossbows, daggers, staves, and all sorts of different magic, which is actually animated quite nicely. You actually have a wide variety of armor sets you can wear too. Some that look pretty cool, and some that don't. But there's a decent variety of them. You have medieval style, Japanese style, robes, thieves' armor, and stuff like that. But, like I said, no helmets. And it doesn't help either that a lot of the armor sets, they're really low cut on your character's collarbone, as if your main character's supposed to be female. So Joseph's showing off his cleavage, and like this is the most important part of your body to protect for the most part, including your head. And I'm a guy who likes his helmets. You can't tell me the helmets aren't the biggest drip of a suit of armor. Oh, that murders my head though. Got that shit in grease. I spent way too much money. I got the suit and the shield too. Yeah, the ladies love it. So we escape to the overworld. And yes, this kingdom has an overworld mechanic with random encounters, which we will get to. But for now, we go to the only place we can see to talk to the only character we know, Iago and Linnell. Now, I have a lot to say about the level design in this game. Linnell is a massive, sprawling metropolis, and it truly does feel big at times. There's a huge skybox, a beautiful soundscape, which, let's talk about that right quick. The music in this game slaps super hard. Almost every single environment in this game has its own distinct soundscape, and it matches perfectly. From the soothing yet bustling soundscape of the city of Linnell, to the eerie yet mysterious soundscape of the Iona catacombs. This game just nails every environment that you're in. Now, the draw distance isn't great in this game, and there's a lot of fog and pop-in, but it still does feel like a sprawling city at times. There are multiple districts separated by loading screens, each with its own aesthetic too. There's carts, there's market stalls, there's occasionally horses, there's NPCs everywhere, even though they're just copy-pastes of each other. But it does feel alive. And that takes me to a huge issue I have with this game, and that is the level design. See, this game's levels are massive, like huge. But they're often filled with absolutely nothing. Now, as a guy who likes to explore every nook and cranny of every environment he's in, this place drives me nuts because I'll be wandering around for ages looking at swaths of nothing. Like the Old Town has an entire second tier to the city separated by stairs, but there's nothing up there, not even an NPC to talk to. No quest givers, no loot, no hidden chests or any Easter eggs, nothing. Mickey Mouse. It's fuck all. And in order to compensate for that, when it comes to the dungeons, the developers just throw dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of enemies in there for you to grind through in order to get to the end. And this game has a lot of backtracking too in order to finish some quests. So you're going to find yourself walking back and forth for literal minutes at a time to get through some of these areas with nothing to do or see. At least the footstep noises aren't too bad. Now, I'm a guy who really likes footstep noises in games. I think my favorite is probably Outcast, which is a game that I would love to do a video on at some point, and I think is super underrated. Let me know in the comments what your favorite footstep noises in the game is. And the camera doesn't help either. Oh my Christ, this camera's haunted at times. See, it always goes to a high stance when you get into a fight, which means you can't see anything over 5 feet around your characters. But in order to rotate it, you have to slowly move your mouse to the left and right as the camera pans like this. I will bring this up again when we get to side quests, and boy, buckle up, because I got a lot to say about side quests in this game. But for now, we enter the outskirts and talk to every NPC we find with exclamation marks above their head, getting a lay of the land. So, let's talk about the side quests in this game. Side quests in RPG games are almost more important than the main quests themselves, and this game probably has some of the worst designed side quest system in my entire history of playing video games. Just about every, if not every side quest in this game is a fetch quest of some kind. And even the quests that require you to kill something, you still have to fetch the loot from their body and bring it back as proof. Some of these quests I call Exodia quests. You know, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, the monster Exodia. You need to find 5 pieces of them in order to win the game. In this game, there's plenty of quests that require you to find 5 or 6 pieces of a certain weapon or object over the span of the entire story of the game. And if you miss one part of this quest, you fail the whole thing. Some of these environments you visit in this game, you will never see again, but they won't tell you that. So, as a force of habit, I comb every single corner of every single one of these giant labyrinthian bullshit maps in order to find all the Exodia pieces that you might miss on the way to finishing your main quests. And some of these quests have really important late game loot rewards. But the vast majority of them have awful rewards that are either power crept or are not worth the time you spent in order to complete them. The first 2 quests of this game you receive, for example, are examples of some of the ones I hate the most. So you'll be walking along and you might go to the dock, and here you'll see a sailor with an exclamation mark above his head. This guy's name is Durgan, and he's lost his lucky earring, and he wants you to get it back, and he refuses to sail until he gets it. Alright, sounds simple enough. But this quest, you might not realize now, spans the entirety of the game that you won't finish until the very final 3rd act of the game, and it requires you to talk to upwards of 10 to 15 different NPCs who send you to another NPC. It's a chain letter quest. So you go to this NPC. He says he lost it in a bet to this NPC. This NPC says it was stolen from him by this NPC. You go to this NPC, he tells you he saw somebody running away with it over here. You talk to that guy and he says he gave it to his cousin, who's now sailing across the sea. How the fuck did all this happen in 5 minutes? The only good thing is you get a decent amount of XP for talking to these NPCs, but you're going to be on a wild goose chase for the entirety of the game. This is not the only quest like this either. The other example of quests I hate in this game is the random encounter quests. So you're going to come across a merchant in the outskirts, and he's going to say his caravans are getting robbed by a band of bandits. That's pretty RPG 101. But what he doesn't tell you is that these bandits are in the open world and that you have to find them randomly in the right encounters. He also wants his bow as proof, fetch quest. So you wander around the overworld, hoping to find the right encounter in order to complete the quest. But what they don't tell you is that there's different environments for random encounters. There's forests, there's grasslands, there's mountains, there's day and night versions of these too, so you don't exactly know when you're going to find them. Luckily in this playthrough, I found them on my first go, but sometimes you can spend upwards of 40 minutes wandering around trying to find these random encounters in order to finish this quest. Imagine in Pokemon if you had to find the Silph Scope in a random encounter in the Zubat Cave. Luckily, this guy told you that he might be in the grasslands. Some of these quests are so vague and cryptic that you're not going to have any idea where they are unless you already know or you're looking at a walkthrough. Now, I'm not saying that I want a marker and a compass and a little bread trail that takes me to the results of all these quests, but a little help would be nice. At least this NPC is a little bit uncommon compared to the others. See, there's only about 5 or 6 NPCs in the entire game, some of which are literal reskins of others. So the guy who gave me that quest, was it the guy with the red beard and the apron? Or this guy with the red beard and the apron? Or was it this guy with the black beard and the apron? Or was it this homeless guy? Or this bandit guy who represents every single thief, cutthroat, and bandit in the entire game? For those of you who played this game for the first time recently, what was the experience like? Did you get lost? Because I swear, even after I've played the game 100 times, I still get confused as to which NPC where gave me which quest when. Sometimes you just find yourself wandering around talking to every character with exclamation marks above their head before you can complete the quest. And the other thing too is that when you do complete the quest, they still have exclamation marks above their head. The Durgan's Earring quest has like 10 or 15 NPCs that you have to talk to who are still wandering around the city at all times. So you might get confused because the guy with the red beard and the apron gave you a quest to get a dagger from the sewers. So you talk to this guy with the red beard and the apron, but he doesn't know because he's the guy from the Durgan quest. See, I think they should remove the exclamation mark from quests that are either done or irrelevant to talk to, because it just adds to clutter for all the other side quests. And with the Durgan quest, if you miss one of these NPCs, you fail the whole thing. And that's the problem. See, with a 3-act structure and quests that span those 3 acts, you might not realize it, but in the 3rd act, you'll be looking for the one item you need to complete the quest that you got in Act 1, but not realize you failed this quest 10 minutes into Act 1, and you're 16 hours into the game, still looking for that one object. Some of the quests do remove themselves from your journal if they're done or can't be completed at times, but it's inconsistent. Now, normally with these RNG quests too, when you get the encounter, the characters that you need to talk to will be standing right there, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're hidden inside the encounter, behind enemies. Like, how the fuck did these characters even get here to begin with? So you need to fight through enemies in order to find the NPC that you need to talk to. But you might not want to do this because these random encounters are just grindy messes, and you want to leave as soon as you get there because you want to get to your next story beat. One quest later that I'll bring up again, a cat quest, requires you to talk to 2 different characters in 2 different random encounters multiple times. And I would get sometimes the first character 6 times in a row before getting the second character that I need to talk to, because they're not in the same encounter mind. I'll have already finished the first part of the quest, and I don't need to talk to the one guy anymore, but the game keeps bringing him up as if I have something else to do or say to him, but no, I need the other character. I spent about 45 minutes looking for a fucking cat. So back to the robber quest. You actually find these guys, and the game actually does something kind of interesting where they give you a choice on how to complete it. You can take violence, or you can take peace. Now, I suggest you take peace because violence at this point you will probably lose because these guys are surprisingly tough and you don't have a full party yet. He's a Robin Hood type character who robs from the rich and gives to the poor, and he says that the merchant is quite a stingy, greedy fellow, so he gives you his bow and sends you on your way. Now, what do you get for doing all this? 10 gold. That's it. Now, this example kind of makes sense because the character was established to be a greedy bastard. But this is not the last time that the quest rewards are often not worth your time or effort going into them. I'll get into more specific examples of side quests that piss me off later. Believe that. For now, let's move on. So, we get to the palace and we get laughed out by the guards. But a local babe named Fleece sees our plight and decides to help out of the goodness of her heart. She leads us to the sewers. Now, get used to these goddamn sewers, because you're going to be coming through here quite a lot. That civvy guy would probably lose his shit if he played this game. So Fleece is the second character of your party, and she's your typical rogue archetype. You know, stealth, backstabbing, lockpicking, stuff like that. And she's arguably the main character of the story, but we'll get to that. Joseph doesn't really have a character to him. And I get that, because he's a vessel for the player, but he doesn't seem to have any input as to what's going on around him. He's a reluctant hero trope at first, but then he just kind of goes along with it and does whatever anybody says. Fleece says there's a secret entrance into the palace that we can sneak through in order to talk to Iago. She's there because she needs to steal something for some guy named Tancred, the King of Fleas. He's essentially the lord of the Thieves Guild in this town, but he barely has an impact on the story besides like 2 conversations you have. He's pretty much bedridden the entire game anyways. He comes and goes as fast as you meet him. Let's go through the sewers. Now, like I said before, we're going to be seeing these sewers a lot, so get used to it. We probably see the sewers more than any other level in the entire game. We come back here probably 6 or 7 times throughout the story, and it never changes besides the enemies inside. These sewers are deep, confusing, dark, and filled with enemies that respawn if you head through a loading zone. That's right, this game has a lot of backtracking, especially through loading zones, and every time you leave a loading zone, all the enemies that you just killed will respawn. So some quests will have you go through an entire zone just to talk to one person to go back through that zone and fight the exact same monsters you just fought in order to get there in the first place. So Fleece is your rogue character, but I always find her kind of weak in combat, so I usually just give her a bow so she can hang back until she gets strong. So like other games, you can assign AI personalities to your party members so they can kind of act autonomously while you control your character of your choice. They range from like healer, support, ranged, caster, and sometimes they're okay. Like casters will cast the appropriate spell due to the weaknesses of the enemies. Sometimes they just kind of dump their mana all at one go and then run out afterwards and go into melee and get killed. It's not the most reliable, and the hitboxes are quite janky, especially when you get your summons into play, which are always usually a lot larger than your characters, and they often get stuck on each other and just get walloped to death. So Fleece introduces a whole new skill set to the game in the form of stealth. Now stealth in this game kind of sucks ass, at least in my opinion. I always found that no matter how high I got the skill level or what equipment I had equipped, it just never seemed to work appropriately. Some enemies would still see me even with their backs turned, some wouldn't. The game never actually tells you how hidden you are anyways. When you use sneak, your character goes translucent as if she is invisible, but it doesn't work. The enemies can see right through it sometimes. It's not like the Thief games where you have that little like bar up at the top that tells you how well hidden you are. The skill points are very precious in this game too, and you cannot respec, so I always just never waste my time with stealth. Besides, Fleece has another use to her. If you level up Fleece correctly, you won't ever have to worry about stealth or anything else ever again. See, there's 3 things that you need to know in order to win this game: blunt, trip, and backstab. So technically, there are stealth kills in this game. If you come up behind an unaware enemy and use a dagger and backstab, you can do critical damage, often killing them in one hit. But stealth sucks. So how do we get around that? Well, Fleece has an ability called Trip, which, as you'd expect, knocks a guy on his ass for a few moments. It's actually pretty effective even just normal combat, but what the game doesn't tell you is that when a character is tripped, he becomes unaware again. So all you have to do is walk behind where the character's back would be, use backstab, boom, same effect. You can use this to cheese almost every enemy in the game that's bipedal. 4-legged enemies don't count. You can do this to bosses, you can do this to elite enemies, you can do this to anybody. And it's really cheesy. You almost don't have to play the game after this. The game balance is pretty fucked up in this game. Some of the gear that you get in the first act are good enough to go through the entirety of the rest of the game until you get your late game legendary armor sets. Like the chainmail armor you get is actually better than almost every armor set, including breastplates, plate mail, until you get to the 3rd act. Case in point, blunt. So the game has damage types, like every other game. It has slashing, piercing, blunt, elemental. So there's a weapon that you can buy from a vendor in Act 2 that essentially makes every other weapon in the game, legendary included, worthless. After you get yourself a mace or a hammer, swords and bows are pretty much pointless. I still like to use bows though, because it keeps some of your weaker characters out of combat, and it does do consistent chip damage, no matter how little we they are. So massacre the lizardmen, or Baysites as this game calls them, but make sure to explore this place thoroughly, because a lot of side quest loot is located down here in the sewers. Now, loot. Let's talk about loot. Can we talk about loot for a second? I want to talk about loot. I'm dying to talk about loot, so let's talk about loot. So loot in this game is represented by these. Little sacks, little satchels. That's it. There are no chests in this game. There are no closets. There are no wardrobes. There are no boxes. An RPG without chests? That's like the biggest sin besides wearing helmets. So crucial quest items and loot are located in these little bags and satchels, and they're about the size of a squirrel's nutsack. Look. See? Look how small they are. Hey, look how small I am. Isn't that cool? Technology, everyone. And that's if you can see these things in the first place. Because with a terrible draw distance, you're not going to know that thing is there until you walk over to the corner to take a shit, and you end up wiping your ass with a piece of glass that fell from the palace in the sky. Holy shit, these things are hard to spot, and they're often tucked away in the teeniest little nooks and crannies. Doesn't help that these things are colored poorly. They often blend in with the environments they're in. Again, I'm not asking to have my hand held, but would it kill them to have like a little twinkle effect like they do in Dragon Age? It doesn't help that the logic of the locations of some of these items is absolutely nonsensical. So take this quest, for example. In the old town, you come across a lady in a dress. You talk to her, and she gives you the lowdown on the history of the human race. So humans used to have wings, called Sudani, and they lived in glass palaces in the sky. Then when Urath, the god of gods, gets into a fight with his sister Lahara, the glass palace is shattered, and all the humans fell to earth and lost their wings. So this lady gives us an Exodia quest of finding 3 of these lost shards from the palaces in the sky, which she'll make us a sword with. So where are these 3 glass shards? Well, one is in the sewers. Okay, well that kind of makes sense, because the sewers were established to have been an ancient city of old. Where's the second shard, you ask? Well, the Temple of Urath. That's right. Urath, the god of gods. It's right there. See it? There. Sitting next to the staircase. Thousands of years. Not one priest walked by and was like, oh, somebody left a sack here. Should pick that up. Oh, there's glass from the ancient holy city in the sky. Where's the third piece? Next to this torch, inside the three-headed skeleton of a giant monster buried under the island of Iona. So essentially you're telling me that this glass palace shattered, landed on the ground, to which this civilization built a temple around it without picking it up, and another one apparently got eaten by some three-headed monster god guy. So what is your reward? A strong-ish sword, but it's two-handed, slow as shit, and you need to have leveled up your character's heavy arms in order to use it. So by the time you get this thing, it's outclassed by other items you've already found. Especially since every character can technically wield any kind of weapon in the game for the most part, but certain characters were certainly designed with weapons in mind. So Fleece, for example, the game doesn't tell you this, actually has a faster cooldown on attack rolls, which makes sense. Daggers, bows, she needs to be quick, right? But another character using the same bow weapon as her will actually shoot slower than she will. So having Fleece with a crossbow and Rosalind with a crossbow both have a whatever 50 speed, Fleece will actually shoot that crossbow faster than Rosalind does, even though it's the same weapon. They have the same skills. Multiple characters can use staves, for example, but one of the characters was designed with staves in mind, so has her own unique animations for them. Here's an example of how poor the level design is. If you want to leave the sewers for whatever reason, you need to walk along this canal all the way around here, all the way up these stairs just to get to the back of the marketplace. It's like a 3-minute walk in this game. Why not just have a staircase leading straight to the sewers? Why do I have to do all of this walking around just to get into the one dungeon in this city? Not to mention, there's an entire identical canal on the other side. There's an entire staircase leading to it. You can walk that entire pathway for a good 5 minutes, and there's fucking nothing there. So while you're exploring the sewers, you're going to come across a variety of different golems. Some are friendly and chatty, some are obviously broken and corrupted. This leads us to our one and only solo puzzle in the whole game. So there's a solo command in this game, which means your party will chill and you can control one singular character to get something done. The game kind of has this designed around Fleece especially, so your party will chill in the corner while she goes around stealthing about. So there's 2 gates barring your path, but only one can be open at a time. So you hit solo, you talk to the golem, open gate 1, run in between them, select your other character, talk to the golem, open gate 2, close 1, and then right after that there's a switch that opens both gates. Real brain teaser, that one. And that's the only time you ever need to use solo to progress in this game. The puzzle game in this, not so great. So we come across our boss fight against an iron golem and inexplicable giant tentacles for some reason. You can't do anything with them, they just do area of effect damage every now and then. Kill the golem and move on to the forced stealth section of this game. So this is eerily similar to the Ocarina of Time forced stealth section, in which you have to sneak past the palace guards in the gardens to get to Zelda. We take control of Fleece, and we have to sneak through 3 floors of the palace, avoiding guards, in order to find Iago. If we get caught, the guards throw us back out to the start, which is at the secret entrance to the palace, not really asking any questions of how we got there or what this giant door in the cellar is leading to the sewers. This part sucks ass, and it doesn't help that the camera is set to high the whole time, so you can't see more than 5 feet in front of you. The guards have higher vision than you do, and it's basically trial and error. Every entrance that you go through, there's usually a guard on the other side. Throws you back out to the entrance, you go right back up the same way, and try to avoid them the second time. It's also kind of funny that the guards kind of look like the guards in Ocarina of Time, and they have a similar kind of music vibe as you're going through. There's a quest item you need to get here that only appears in this one instance in time, so if you miss it, it's gone. But whatever, the quest reward's kind of garbage anyways. While we're up here, we eavesdrop on an Iranian-looking lady talking to the King of Medova. This cutscene will only make sense later on, and if you've played the game before, but for now, you're just going to be confused. So, we finally find Iago, and what's our reward for successfully sneaking through the bowels of the palace? The sneak skill. Of course, the forced stealth section's reward is stealth. Would have been real fucking handy 5 minutes ago when I kept getting my ass thrown into the cellars every 30 seconds. I hate it when games do this, like you finish the fire level of a dungeon, only to be rewarded with a weapon that's effective against fire enemies, but the next level is an ice palace, so we tell Iago that Joseph's in the basement, he brings us up and gives us the Ring of Darkness, and finally the ability to summon. In the game called Summoner, we finally can summon. And that takes me to my rant about skills and summoning. So, for a game called Summoner, you don't do a whole lot of summoning. You can't summon in towns or safe zones, which I guess makes sense, but it's also kind of neat having them hanging around while you're doing menial tasks. So we get our first summon, the Dark Fire Elemental, who's some cool Archon-looking guy from StarCraft who casts dark magic and uses his fists. The problem I have with summoning is they all kind of suck. They're super frail, so they die in 1 to 2 hits each. The enemy always seems to focus them too, and when you summon, it halves Joseph's health, which makes him even weaker, and when he dies, the summon turns against you, which is actually kind of a cool feature. Unless you control them directly and have your chain timings down. If you can do that, you can get some serious damage done with these guys. Now this is something I just noticed in the early to mid game. Yes, in the late game, after Joseph's leveled up a bit and you've had time to wear the rings, your summons can be pretty decent in combat. But the ratio to useful summons to useless summons is still pretty high. They all have their own magic and chains which you can use, but I don't know, it takes a long time to get them to a level that is actually good, and by the time you get them to that level, you're not going to be able to summon them anymore. You can't carry them through loading zones either, so if you summon one in one stage of a dungeon, you have to re-summon him in the next zone, and often or not, a boss fight is in a completely separate zone, so you have to re-summon, and that takes a long time. The spells and skills in this game take a long time to cast, and you can be interrupted when you do them, especially the heal spell, which is like 6 or 7 second cast time, and you can be interrupted at any point during that spell casting, which means you waste your mana and your character just doesn't do it. If you time the casting poorly, your character won't even start casting the spell, but you'll still waste your mana. So skills are a hotly debated topic. Some people disagree on whether or not they do what they say on the tin or whether or not they're useful. So for combat skills like sword, blunt, bow weapons, the increasing of the skills actually increases their chance to hit, whereas magic, increasing their level only allows you access to higher tier spells. It doesn't make the actual spell stronger. By having a level 7 fire arrow, it does the same amount of damage as a level 8 one. I suggest just doing level 7 in both fire and ice because the level 10 spells are whatever, they're not that useful. Firewall and blizzard for the win. For being a summoner, you think that the summoning skill would be useful to level up. But leveling up your summoning skill only increases the speed at which they gain power by wearing the rings and getting kills. But there's another source that says the summons level up with your character, so as Joseph gets stronger, so does your summon. So it's kind of an ipso facto whether or not you should level up your summoning at all. At least don't level it up in the first act, because it won't be long before you're not allowed to summon for a while. The most important skills, in my opinion, are Magic Resist and Blunt. Blunt being obvious. And Magic Resist, when you get that to level 10, it essentially makes your characters immune to all elemental damage, and a lot of enemies and bosses actually have elemental damage. Heavy arms is important too for wielding heavier weapons and armors and more advanced stuff, and of course, like the specific skills per characters like Fleece's Trip and Backstab, you want to get that to 10 right away too. Getting Backstab to level 10 means you do maximum damage at all times. Other magics like Dark I never found very useful. Holy's not bad for some good buff spells. Energy, you get Lightning, and that's pretty much the only useful spell you get for that too. And if you're going Fire and Ice, get them both to level 7. They're going to be your bread and butter later on. Now the game doesn't tell you this, but leveling up certain rings allows you a second summon. The Fire, Light, and Stone rings in particular. Now, some of these have their own unique models and movesets and are really cool. But again, they're kind of useless, and they die in 2 to 3 hits anyways. Most of the summons you get in this game are just reskins of other monsters you already fight in the game, which is a little lazy and a little lame, but whatever. So, we gotta go on another rant about side quests, and I want to talk about one in particular. So one thing that really pisses me off in this game is that some NPC quest givers spawn at different stages of the game, sometimes in places that you might have already looked. That takes us to the Temple of Urath, this big cathedral area with stained glass windows, pews, and a Hierophant NPC who lore dumps the history of the mythology of this world and actually voiced cutscenes, although they kind of look like South Park pictures. Now in this room there are 3 identical staircases with 3 layers each that lead to balconies of nothing. So you come here, you explore around, you talk to the Hierophant, you see another couple priests with exclamation marks that do nothing but babble on about stupid shit for 16 minutes and then move on with their day. You find the Shard of Glass, and then you leave, okay? But after going to the island of Iona, an NPC spawns on the second staircase at the back of the room, 2 layers up. Now you might not even know this guy exists unless you come back here. And if you're like me and explore everywhere you can right away, you will have no reason to think to come back here because you're not aware that new NPCs spawn at different times, especially in obscure-ass places like this. You'd think if he was this important, you'd put him in the front door or next to the Hierophant, not in the second staircase 2 levels up in the back of the room. Why else would you come back here? There's no logical reason that you would explore this place other than knowing that somebody will eventually spawn here. The quest he gives to, by the way, is a big fucking deal lore-wise. So this priest tells you that his initiate named Eladak is missing, which is a big no-no in this religion. He doesn't give you any other information other than that. So you leave and you walk down the staircase into this loading zone. By the way, this loading zone is a pretty big area. There's bridges and massive stairs and these different like cage areas with guard towers and gates. But there's nothing here. There's not even one NPC to talk to that's important. There are some random NPCs walking around, but they just say generic shit. So why design this place other than to show off the size and scope of this city? There's nothing, it's just a waste of time. You come through this area 4 times in this quest, and it's just... And imagine, this is not on loading times. If this was back in the PlayStation 2, I imagine these loading screens could have been 30 seconds to a minute each. That's so much time wasted just to enter an area, just to walk down one set of stairs to go into another area. So once we get to the Crown District, you might have noticed that there's a new NPC that spawned. You probably won't because as you're walking this way, he's hidden around the corner over here, so you're not going to see the exclamation mark above his head. You talk to this homeless guy and he asks you for money. You give him some money and he tells you that he saw an initiate leaving with a band of thieves. Perfect. That sounds like Eladak. Let's go tell the priest. So we go back to the Crown District, back through the loading zone, back up the stairs, into the temple, to the back of the temple, up that second set of stairs, and talk to the priest. He doesn't believe you. So you go back down the stairs, back through the loading zone, back to the Crown District, back to the marketplace, talk to the homeless guy. He says that Eladak is planning to steal the feather of Urath, a feather from the wings of the literal god of gods. This is pretty important. So you go back up the temple, back up the stairs, back to the gate, back up the second staircase, talk to the priest. He tells you, oh no, the feather has already been stolen by the priests of Iona. And the priests of Iona means it's going to be a holy war between Urath and Iona. This is huge. This is going to be a world-changing event. We need to retrieve this feather or the entire planet could be shattered by this fight between one god and another god. So you go down the stairs, back to the Crown District, back to the marketplace, outside, all the way to Iona, and you go to the Iona temple, and where is it? It's right here. Right there. Just on the lawn. Not even in like a garbage can or something. So alright, we pick it up, we run away, we go back to Linnell, back to the marketplace, back to the Crown District, up the stairs, in the temple, back room, up the stairs, talk to the priest, give it to him. What's our reward? For stopping a holy war, a literal Aranageth, as they call it, the apocalypse between 2 religious orders? 700 experience. And a ring of talents, which gives you a +1 to a couple useless stats. 700 experience. This quest probably took you half an hour of running up and down, and that's knowing what you're doing. If you didn't know, you might not have any idea what to do with this quest. 700 experience. Each base site, the Lizardmen and the Sewers, they give you like 550 experience each. I got more experience from the random encounter I got heading to Iona than I did from completing the side quest between a holy war of the god of gods and another priesthood. And we never hear about Eladak or his bandits again. We never meet them. We never understand why he stole the feather. We never even give our own input into it. You'd think that this would affect some of the characters in the party. Depending when you do this quest, you'll have a third member in your party who is a part of the priesthood of Iona, so it's probably a big deal to her. No, doesn't say anything. Nothing. There are so many quests like this that take you on these wild goose chases all through different cities and realms and dungeons and times, only to drop sand in your lap and then send you on your way. At least some of the Exodia quests later on give you some legendary late game gear, but even then, it's not even that useful for most of the time. Especially if you failed in Act 1 by missing a piece of the puzzle. And no helmets. So we need to find the remaining rings of power, the rings of summoning, in order to unite the kingdom and defeat the Iranians. So we go to the island of Iona. The Isle of Iona is a pretty cool place. It's got decent lore, a really nice sunny place, banging music, and a lot of cool little bits and pieces of lore, like this stone golem who operates an elevator to get to the top of the island. Once here, we talk to the blind abbot who gives us our third party member, Rosalind, our caster. Now, Rosalind is a pretty important member of this party. She is Iago's daughter. What? Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. She's reluctant to join the quest. That's essentially the end of her character. She brings it up 2 or 3 more times, and she helps Joseph heal his hand later on, but that's it. That's her contribution to the story. She's essentially just a meat sack with a stick, or in this case a bow, because I give her a bow because she sucks in melee. Now, she's your caster character, and if you control her exclusively, you can get some damage done with her. She also has good healing spells as well. As I said before, she's primarily designed to use staffs, but she has these annoying flourishes. She basically Indiana Jones the whole time. She spends so much time spinning her staffs around that she doesn't actually do any damage with it. So I slap a bow on her and sit her in the back, because she's very frail in melee combat too. She also has the least amount of weapons and armor sets in the game, so she's not that exciting to even explore loot for. Staves can be useful because they are blunt for the most part, but I just slap a bow on her, put her heal to 10, her ice and fire to 7, and then she's pretty much done for the rest of leveling up in the game. As I said before, the spell casting is actually pretty cool in this game. They have really good graphics and effects to them, but they have long wind-up times and are easily interruptible, and this game drops inputs like a sumbitch, I swear. Some moves, like Trip with Fleece, will drop constantly, especially if you do them in awkward timings of her other animations, and it still takes the mana, or AP in this case, out of your pool. Characters will often just drop inputs altogether, and sometimes just ignore your commands completely. It's extremely frustrating at times. So we discover that the Ring of Light is hidden in the bowels of a dead 3-headed god that's buried beneath the island. And when you go down here, you realize that this dead god is way larger than the island is on the map. Apparently, a band of knights led by a Sir Carados went down here a few hundred years ago to find the ring, but they were never heard from again. Looks like we got a King Leoric situation from Diablo here, boys. Fit with catacombs. We are essentially in the body of King Ghidorah. Now, this level is cool thematically, but it is a long, maze-like gauntlet of hundreds of skeleton enemies, easy-to-miss secret hallways, random changes in elevation, and repetitive puzzles. And the in-game map system is utterly woeful. This will come up later on, but the map here is very bad at distinguishing walls from floors and different elevations, like layers in the map. And a lot of these maps have verticality to them. So we find Sir Carados, who is looking rather undead. We kill him and we take one of the best swords in the early game, and the Ring of Light, which allows us to summon the Mist Elemental, a cloud of air that zaps enemies when it attacks and dies in one hit. It's actually decent against golem enemies, but... So we have to leave and go back to Linnell and report to Iago. Now, you might miss it, but your first random encounter between them is against one of the 4 riders of Murad. You remember them? You might miss this entirely if you don't get a random encounter, because sometimes you can go quite a while without getting one. He's kind of janky to fight on horseback, but there's always 2 stages to all these rider fights, so after you dismount him, he's a lot more manageable. This game has a lot of surprise boss fights, and your characters are always unarmed for some reason, so you have to take the 4 seconds to pull the sword off your back, and then an extra 6 seconds to summon the monster you want, and by the time you do that, the rider's been walloping the shit out of you. But whatever, take him to Pound Town and send him on his way, and go back to Linnell. We get back to Iago and are instructed to get the Fire and Stone Ring. And we get to talk to King Bellius and Queen Gallienne here, and Prince Sonorhan, who totally looks trustworthy and not like he's going to betray the king at a later time. We only get to know these characters for a short time, and before you know it, they're not going to be a part of the story anymore, so it's a real shame because it doesn't really give you much in the sense of stakes or relationship between any of the characters in this game. This is also where we meet our final party member, Jakar. Now, Jakar is your meat stick. Big guy, big health, big stick, big bang, boom. He's an alright fighter. Jakar and Joseph actually have history here. You see, Jakar is from Saran, the same village that Joseph was from, and Joseph summoned the Demon of Darkness that remember, which murdered everybody and destroyed the village forever, including Jakar's family. Because of Joseph, Jakar's entire family was slaughtered, and his village destroyed. And he swears revenge. And that's it. He brings it up in dialogue maybe 2 or 3 more times throughout the game, and gets over it pretty quick. There's no tension between the two. There's no betrayal or moment where you maybe have to fight Jakar in order to prove your worth to him. He's reluctant to join the adventure, just like Rosalind was reluctant and Joseph was. And that's pretty much the extent of his character. He's a loyal soldier. He brings that up once or twice. He wants to serve the king. He wants to serve the queen. Cool. There's no other nuance to his character. He doesn't really interact with any of the other characters. You don't get a relationship between Fleece or Rosalind and Jakar, or Jakar and Joseph, besides the fact that he hates him for killing his family. This game really could have used the camp system like in Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate 3, where you have a chance to actually converse with your characters and ask them how they're doing or what they think about certain quests you've done or the different story beats you're on. What do they think about the Summoner? What do they think about the Kingdom? What do they think about the war between Medivh and Arenia? Nothing. There's a few rare times where you don't have control of your party members and you can chat with them, but they just dredge up the same shit. Rosalind's mad at Yago. Jakar's mad at Joseph. Doesn't stop them from continuing the adventure. Now, there are times where the party does split up with the rest of the game, but they're more for gameplay reasons and lame story beats than they are for actual inter-conflict between the characters. So the Royals tell us about the two remaining realms we need to visit, the swamps of Akemos and the realm of the Kosani, Sanavar. The Kosani are basically this game's version of dwarves. They're little, they're hairy, they don't really have beards, but they forge the rings. So we have a choice here. We can either go to Sanavar and get the Ring of Fire, or go to Akemos and get the Ring of Stone. Sanavar. Go to Sanavar. The Ring of Fire is infinitely more useful than the Ring of Stone, and Akemos is nothing but pain. The realm of Sanavar is a really cool underground city with the Kosani walking around. There's gemstones, big pyramids, and the soundtrack in this place, oh my god, it's bombing. It's one of my workout mixes for sure.
I'm sorry. Didn't even know you could hear that.
See, most of the shopkeepers and quest givers are kind of focused around this big pyramid here, but in order to get to the other side, you need to walk up all the way up this staircase just to go down this staircase to take a loop, when you could just chop away this 5 feet of rock right here, and it could take you 5 seconds to get there. Now, there's a little path halfway up the staircase that looks like you can use to cut across, but there's an invisible wall there that won't let you go. So, like, why not just chop this little cliff? Chop it. Get rid of it. Save me 30 seconds of walking up and down stairs. Before the Kosani will talk to you, however, you need to prove your worth, so you need to do a labyrinth. Basically a gauntlet of challenges that you have to get through in order for them to respect you. Now, this place is a series of rooms with different puzzles to solve. Some of them are very vague and cryptic, others are pretty self-explanatory. You can either do the puzzles for an experience boost, or you can just smash your way through and kill all the enemies. When you get to the end, you have to fight a giant Salamanca. Now, this boss fight is in 3 different stages, and each stage drops loot, so don't leave after it's dead. You get here the Ring of Fire, and arguably the only useful summon you get for a long time, the poster child of the game, the Red Minotaur. He's actually pretty cool. He's a big lad, he runs fast, and he has Chain Trip and casts fire on some of his hits, which is not very useful against fire enemies because he ends up healing them, but he's still squishy, but he can take 2 or 3 extra hits than you would think. And controlling him is not bad because he has a Chain Trip, which you can use to backstab with Fleece or just knock guys on their ass for an extra couple fights. After we exit Kosani, we go back to Linnell, but we have to fight the Phoenix Rider, who has a nuke spell when you get him down to half health, so just watch yourself. Leveling up the Fire Ring gives you the Blood Elemental. It has its own unique model, and damn. Whew. Like them cheeks. Look at the dumper on this Blood Demon, eh? He siphons health on hits, but again, he's so frail and actually doesn't do a whole lot of damage that he's not worth it, especially with the amount of time it takes to grind to get to him. By now you'll notice that your map is getting full of icons. Akemos, Iona, Linnell, and weirdly, Masad is still here, the tutorial level. There's no other purpose to go back here throughout the rest of the game, unless you want to grind experience. It's kind of a shame because it's taking up space. You might as well have a reason to go back there. Maybe some of the side quests you do could lead you back there. I don't know, something, but alas, it's just leftovers. A couple more quest givers spawn, but you might not know it, and there's one I have to talk about now. There's one quest that I happened upon by chance when I was a kid. In this forest night encounter with a bunch of undead, if you turn right and walk behind this bush, you'll find one of those nutsacks that you can pick up, and in it is called Torva's Loot. Now you have no idea what this is, but that's because only after you've achieved 2 rings does this NPC spawn in the marketplace next to a bridge, which you probably won't ever use. Now, if you find this NPC before you find the loot, which why would you? He spawns in a really strange place that you wouldn't know to look in unless you literally clear every area that you go to every time. He'll tell you that he was scared by monsters and dropped his magic loot. And that's all the information you get. Now, it kind of makes sense for this quest, because if you get the loot and give it to him, he gives you 125,000 gold, which is a pretty cool reward, except gold is pretty much worthless in this game. Most of the late game stuff you collect from quests or just finding in random rooms in the dungeons are way better than anything you'll ever buy in this game. And health potions, I've used them a couple times, but they're not that useful either. You can cheese with spell scrolls, because they're fairly cheap and they cast a spell for you, including late game ones like Meteor and Firewall, but the loot is only located in this one random encounter at night with this one specific enemy type. He doesn't even say when you ask him, oh, skeletons scared me and I dropped my loot. Maybe then you'd have more of a chance of figuring out what he wants. The information is so vague, and this particular encounter is huge, and it's so disorienting and so confusing because it's basically one giant square of trees and bushes and skeletons that you would never even think to look there. Most of the time you'll probably just find it by chance. This is what I'm talking about when I say add a little twinkle to it. I mean, I'm all for solving the mystery and finding it on my own and having the reward of knowing that I completed the quest using my own smarts. But this is perfectly appropriate to fucking do this shit with. Now, before we head to Akamos to get the stone ring, you need to complete any loose ends that you might have. Because once we go to Akamos, we ain't coming back. So this video has turned into quite the project, according to the length that I've seen in my timeline here. So we had to film it over multiple days. So if anything looks different, I think I trimmed my beard. Bear with me, all right? I did it over a couple weeks. So onward to the swamps of Akamos. Now, Akamos has some cool lore. So it turns out, thousands of years ago, the city pissed off its deity, and the deity threatened to flood the whole city. So their priest, king guy, head patriarch, decided to turn all of his followers into stone to prevent them from the pain of drowning. Now, I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs there, which is a worse fate, turn to stone for eternity or drowning. Maybe turning to stone is instantaneous, so So the Swamps of Akamos is a miserable level. Just like the ones before it, it's long, it's labyrinthian, there's loads of invisible walls, tight corridors inside, multiple loading zones, especially if you want to complete the side quests. You might have to fight the same group of monsters 3 or 4 times before you finish. The inside's not as bad as the outside, but there's a lot of highly resistant tanky enemies here that you have to fight, and your party can't even get like a full surround on them half the time, and it just gets really boring really quickly. Especially if you want to complete the 2 side quests here. So, inside the palace, you're going to come across a wraith. He's actually the same skin as your wraith summon if you level up your light ring. Now, this wraith has been wandering the palace cursed for hundreds, if not thousands of years, lamenting the fact that he forgot to give a rose to the queen of Akamos on her wedding day and was forever cursed to haunt this palace. So, we agree to help. Now, where's this rose that he's lost hundreds, if not thousands of years ago? It's outside the front door. Right around the corner. Like, if you do the math, probably 15 meters from where this ghost is standing. And this rose is not there before you talk to this wraith. So, in the span of 1,000 years, we talk to this wraith, and then in 15 seconds, somebody drops the rose outside of the palace. It's almost like when you were a kid and you stole something from your sister or your brother or maybe your parents, and they find out that it's missing, but they don't know that you stole it yet. So after they give you the ultimatum, you go outside and you hide it under the car or something, and then you miraculously find it. Oh, hey, Mom, weren't you looking for the cookies from the cookie jar? Well, I found them under the car. The fucking rats must have taken it, or the cat, or my sister. So, this horrible coincidence that you get this rose, it almost would have been better if the rose was there beforehand. Like, you find the stone rose, you're like, ooh, this is a cool little object. What is this? Is this for a quest? Is this an equipable? Do I give it to somebody? And then you find the wraith, and you give him the rose. Boom, job done. Easy peasy. Now, it's a really easy quest, but it's still super annoying that if you went outside and saw that there was nothing out here, and then you were tasked with finding this rose, you could be spending hours inside the palace, going through loading zone after loading zone, fighting the same enemies over and over again in the hopes of finding this rose, which has appeared after you get the quest. And what's your reward? 1,000 experience points. That's literally it. That's it. 1,000. It's ridiculous. You might have gotten 20,000 experience on your way to meeting this ghost, for Christ's sake. This is what I'm talking about. This game does not respect your time. Now, before you come to Akamos, you might come across another NPC that has spawned since in the marketplace. Now, this guy tasks you with finding vials of gargoyle blood that can only be found in Akamos' mind. So you have two kind of side objectives that you can do here. Now you can kill these gargoyles, which are mostly located indoors. Now they don't always drop the gargoyle blood, it's random, right? Just like the old World of Warcraft classic where you have to find 4 zebra hooves and you kill 460 of them only to get 2. So if you want to complete this side quest for a minimal reward, you need to either go to Akamos before you go to Sanavar, or you have to get the gargoyle blood and not fight the boss. The moment you fight the boss, the story advances, and you can't go back to Linnell properly after this. So this quest you might not even realize exists for multiple playthroughs. So we have to find 4 runic daggers in order to open this door to fight the boss, and some of these are located deep in the bowels of the palace. We travel through multiple loading zones, maybe even outside if you don't know where you're looking, and fight the same monsters maybe 2 to 3 times in order to get back to the original room in order to open the door to the boss. Now, if you are not prepared for this boss, you are absolutely fucked. The boss is the priest lord of Ikamos, who turned everyone to stone, including himself, but he's still alive, so he's a statue. Now, the only things that can damage him are blunt or some magic. So if you didn't know that to bring blunt before you came here, you are completely screwed, because he takes 0 damage for anything else. Knock his ass to curb, and we unlock the stone ring. And with the stone ring, we get 2 summons, the stone golem and the blade of Urath. Guess what? They both kind of suck. Now the stone golem is just a reskin of the stone golems you've already been fighting, but the golem also moves as fast as them, and this game has a lot of terrain to travel through. You have a lot of ground to cover. So if you get far enough away from any of your summons, or one gets stuck on something, or you have them on solo mode, the summon will die. Which means, in order to continue progressing through a level, you have to stand there and wait for this lumbering asshole to slowly clunk, 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 all the way up to you. And when he reaches the fight, he's complete shit. He does very little damage, he attacks super slow, and he dies in like 5 hits. Now, the Blade of Urath is a really cool-looking summon. It's essentially like a floating phantom sword from the God of Gods that we found the feather for earlier. And he does some really cool, like, slashing and he does a shitload of damage. The problem is, he has, like, less than 100 health and 0 defense. So, not being hyperbolic here, but he literally dies in 1 hit to almost any single enemy in the game, especially at this point. Which is such a shame, because he would be really cool for like a DPS support. As you're fighting a boss, he could be sneaking in the back, but as soon as he gets into combat, all the enemies seem to aggro on him. And I don't think any of the characters have like a taunt ability in this game that focuses all the enemies on them, no. So, if you haven't forgotten, there's a war going on. Now, you might not realize it because nothing much is really happening other than a few NPCs chatting about it every now and then, and the village of Massa that you started in, but at this point, the war goes to a completely different level. And there's actually a really cool instance that you might never see, other than fighting the rider bosses. In one of the grasslands random encounters, instead of undead or base sites, you actually come across some Medivhan soldiers, like a knight and 2 guards, who kind of walk around and automatically fight with some Iranian enemies. It's actually pretty cool. It's kind of like their way of displaying like a battle going on, so to speak. When I was a kid, I used to let the knight and guards like die on purpose because I didn't know if they would drop like really rare loot that only they themselves dropped, so I could get like the knight shield or the knight sword. I think the mod actually adds the knight shield as an object, but unfortunately this doesn't really mean much. So when we get back to Linnell, things have changed. It's nighttime, and we're greeted by the only bandit NPC. He says that while the Duke of Tarimon, who's been mentioned a few times but we never actually meet, has gone off to fight General Paegian of the Orenians. Now, while the Duke is out with the army, fighting the Orenians, Prince Sorahan, surprise, surprise, has betrayed the king and opened the gates for the Orenians to come in, and now they have occupation of the whole city. There's a curfew about, so we can't be caught out after dark. So apparently the queen has escaped, and is taking refuge with Tancred, the king of fleas. And the only way to get to him without alerting the Orenians is through the sewers. Into the sewers we go. And apparently Tancred has a sewer entrance right to the front door of his house, which is ridiculous. So we fight through the sewers, we get to Tancred's house, and he reveals that he murdered Fleece's mom. Ooh, character development. This is going to come up later, I'm sure. And he dies. He pretty much Yodas this information. Oh, by the way, I killed your mom. After a brief conversation with Galien, Jakar and Rosalind decide that this is the time to split the party and take her to safety. So we only have Fleece and Joseph and his summons now, and maybe confront Sonahan. So we have to fight through the marketplace of Linnell to get there, which means we have to go back through the sewers. When we actually emerge in one of my favorite chapters of the game, and it is Linnell at night filled with Orenians. And this is probably why Linnell is so big and labyrinthian with these annoying-ass canals you have to walk up to get to the main part of the marketplace, because they wanted to fill it with enemies for you to fight. So apparently the Iranians are very keen on guarding the sewer entrance, because there's dozens of Iranians on the way to the main marketplace. We get introduced to the new enemy of the game, and one of my favorites, the samurai. And these guys look awesome. They have their own unique sound effects, they have really cool moves, and they have really good animations. They do spin attacks, they attack with a wakizashi and a katana. Oh, I love these guys. They drop mad experience too when you kill them, which is always a good thing. Now, we could, and I think the game kind of wants you to stealth through this area, but it's way more fun to just butcher these Iranians as bad. You just got all these new summons. This is basically the only time you get to let your summons run amok, especially inside a city. So we make our way around, we kill all the Iranians we can find, we do a couple little side bits here and there, including the game's only escort quest, which is hardly an escort quest. This NPC can't die. You basically just watch her slowly walk to the other side of the Crown District before you complete the quest. And you meet Batman, a weird, like, Dark Knight statue character that is just fighting random Iranians and has this really long diatribe about bloody fighting at night and serving the king until his dying breath or something. I don't know. You never see him again, and I used to let him die too, just to see if he would drop any loot. So we clear the streets of the night and enter the Temple of Urath, where we see King Belius getting shanked by Sornahan. Well, it's too bad we didn't have much time with this character. His death doesn't really move me all that much. And we meet General Pagian, the main bad guy of the Iranian forces, other than Emperor Murad himself. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. It's really annoying because I would really love to get invested in these characters. There should be some sort of, emotional change when you meet them and fight them and eventually defeat them. But this is the only time we meet Pagian. He has one line, I think, in the entire game before we fight him as a boss fight later on.
I hate to interrupt your pomp and reveling, King Sornahan, but may I remind you that Murad is your master now? The Emperor has no need for ceremonies. He wants the boy.
And I assure you, General Pagian, that the boy will come to you.
He is the general of the Iranian army. Sornahan we've only had one conversation with, and it doesn't really build up a level of anticipation or payoff or emotional stress that when you meet these characters. Even the Emperor Murad, who is the big bad of the Iranians, we, apart from other characters talking about him, we never actually see him until we fight him later on. We don't know what he sounds like, we barely know what he looks like other than these crudely drawn cinematic pictures, and it's just a shame. I would really love to learn more about their motivations. Why are they the way they are? Why are they evil? Why do they want this? Other than just conquer the world, har, har, har. We meet the last rider here, the Tiger Rider. We dispatch him quickly enough, and then we come to the big cutscene of this game. So I guess Sornahan and Pagian have left the area, and we get led down into the basement of the temple by Iago. Now, in this basement, there is a giant forge in the shape of a hand with a palm opened up with flames coming out. Iago says that we need to fuse all the rings together to make the Master Ring. So we have to put them all on my hand and stick my hand into the furnace. I mean, we have no reason to distrust Iago right now, so of course Joseph just goes ahead and does it. And, surprise, surprise, our hand gets burnt off, and when the rings are destroyed, demons are released. So each ring has a demon associated with it, and they're all trapped inside these rings, other than the dark demon, which we summoned earlier in Saran, if you remember. So with these rings all destroyed, all the demons are free. The demon of stone, light, and fire, and darkness. Turns out, Iago was a traitor all along and was being mind-controlled by the demon of darkness. He thanks Fleece, who has this dramatic reveal of her betraying us by luring us here, but there's nothing to really speak to this at all. She basically just joins the party and just fights alongside. I don't even think she mentions the fact that we should go see Iago at some point. It's just what we're supposed to do. Get the rings, talk to Iago. Get the ring, talk to Iago. That's the basic checkpoints that we've been following this entire time. Fleece has done nothing to signify that she might be mischievous, other than the fact that she's a rogue character. We have no reason to not trust her. There's never been a conversation between the two that we could even justify Joseph being suspicious of Fleece. But this is a huge story beat, and Joseph screams and yells, "Fleece, no!" And he later on he bitches her out for betraying him, and this is the lamest betrayal I've seen in a game. So let's do the math here. Sornahan's betrayed us. Iago is a traitor. The Queen's a traitor. Spoiler. And Fleece is a traitor, so every character you meet is a traitor of some sort. Okay, so now we're missing a hand. Luckily, it's the offhand, so he can still wank properly. And the demon gives us to Maraud. Very diplomatic demon, this. Fleece moves on and gets paid or something. Jakar and Rosalind take the queen to Iona to keep her safe. And now we move on to Act 2. So the party is split, the rings are gone, and so are the summons. In a game called Summoner. It feels like we just got these summons and now they're already gone. For a large portion of the game, too. Some of these summons you might have only have gotten for one level. I hope you didn't get attached to the Red Minotaur, because we're probably not going to see him again. So this is an idea that I had rolling around my head. So while you're on your way back to Linnell, and even after the fall, we hear about the Duke of Tarman, the Duke of Tarman. He's basically like the commander-in-chief of the army who fights on the king's behalf. Now, he's apparently fighting the Iranians in another area of Medivh while we're doing all this bullshit. Now, I think that this was a missed opportunity for an extra level here. I feel like we could have either gone back to Masad or gone to a completely different area where there's a battle going on between the Medivhans and the Iranians. It should be kind of like an open-ended area, maybe loads of enemies, maybe some NPC allies, and we're just there and unleashed. We have all the rings, plenty of experience to gain, lots of loot to collect. Go nuts. I feel like this could have been a good opportunity where we could have met Pigeon or even Maraud. Maybe we could have seen him make a speech to his troops in a cutscene. Pigeon as well. We could have met the Duke of Tyrimon. Instead of him being mentioned by every other character every 5 seconds, we could have actually seen him in the flesh. Strive to be like him. Help him. Save Medivh. We never feel like we're fighting a war in this game, even though it's like the big point of this game and why we're doing all this shit. It's the reason the war exists. Maraud wants to kill us, the Summoner. This would have been great to have Maraud meet the Summoner and go, this is the Summoner, eh? Well, I shall have my revenge, or whatever, and come and try to kill you. Maybe you could fight all 4 riders at once here, or maybe just meet the 4th rider here instead. But no, we go back to Linnell, we get to use the summons for a little bit, and then we lose them. So if you didn't grind or didn't think to grind, you might not have even had a chance to use half of these summons. There's like 20 monsters you get to summon in this game, but only like 3 are usable, and you don't even know that the rest exists. So we're shipped off to Orenia to live out the rest of our days in the dungeons under the Tower of Ela, Maraud's tower to the heavens. He can't kill us because if he does kill us, a new summoner will be born, which actually is kind of a cool plot point. So Fleece has felt guilty about betraying Joseph, so she's decided to sail across to Orenia to save him. Now, the demons are apparently running amok in Medivh and have destroyed all the cities and killed all the people, so Orenia is the only safe haven anyways, besides Iona, which is where the Queen and Jakar and Rosalind are. We're expected to sneak our way in and get Joseph out of here, or trip and backstab your way through everything. This level used to be stressful when I was a kid, because the stealthing is very inconsistent in this game. And the enemies are pretty powerful, and if you haven't leveled up Fleece, like what I never did, she can get killed pretty quick in melee combat, and her bow is pretty much useless here. But with Trip and Backstab, you can literally one-shot every enemy in this entire tower. We rescue Joseph, who's pretty pissed off, but joins us immediately. Luckily, he still has one hand, so he can still use longswords, which are still solid weapons. This level's kind of cool. It's like a big construction site with big limestone bricks all over the place, cranes and scaffolding, and a lot of lore tidbits to find here. A lot of characters and slaves to chat with that give you some cool conversations. A few exclusive items here too, and this is one of those levels where once you leave, you ain't coming back. So you make sure to clean this place out top to bottom. Make sure you spot this hallway here underneath this wooden platform that you have to walk down, which you usually won't because your camera's set to high and the wood is kind of translucent, so you can't quite see all the way through. In here are 2 very important Exodia quest steps, one of Durgan's and the Dragon Scale quest that if you might have found earlier. So with Joseph freed, we need to find Rosalind, who has decided to help us and come from Medivh. Apparently she has a solution to Joseph's wanking woes. So we go to the village of Wong, one of my favorite areas in the game. Wong is a nice little compact village with some very nice lush countryside to explore in, and one of the best soundtracks in the entire game.
Would you stop with the damn drumming?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was really getting into your story.
Iranians patrol the streets, so we have to stealth or avoid them at all costs. We find Rosalind in the woods, tells us to collect a bunch of crap to make some cream for our hand, and then she wants to give us 3 invisibility potions. So at the end of this village, there's a big fortress, staircase, scaffolding mess that leads up to the Caverns of Wong, and we need to get up there. The only problem is there's like 100 Iranians in between us and there. So the game wants you to take these 3 invisibility potions and sneak on up, but with strip and backstab, you can murder everybody on the way up. It takes a lot longer, but it's a lot more fun. That takes us to the worst level in the game. The Caverns of Wong. Okay, we need to talk about the Caverns of Wong. I fucking hate the Caverns of Wong. It is the worst example of length, labyrinthian hallways and invisible walls, horrible layout, verticality that's not specified in the map, dogshit puzzles, really annoying perma-curses that you can get, hundreds of really frustrating enemies, from reskinned red minotaurs to these blue minotaurs, these ice knights who are a real pain in the ass, and these weird like dog frog things that just have way too much health and don't really pose much of a threat. It also doesn't help that your camera is set to high the entire time you're in here, so you can't see more than 5 fucking feet in front of you. So you don't know where enemies are, you don't know where levers are. Look at this hidden door. There's a lever right here. You might never seen that. It's this fucking big. And inside is a really important Exodia quest item. You can never tell when the wall meets the floor, so you can't really tell when your character can go up or down. There's a lot of changes in elevation. There's a literal maze / labyrinth that you need a guide to get through, or you can try it yourself. And there's loads of really important side quest items in here. The map is dog shit too, because it has a hard time, like I said earlier, of differentiating walls to floors. So as you can see, it doesn't look like a very big level, but since it's like a big goddamn cone, it doesn't actually tell you if you're on the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor or the 1st floor or this wall or this hallway or this cave. There's a crossroads too, and each path leads you to a perma debuff. One is perma slow, which is absolutely tragic to deal with, and one is perma curse, which means your characters take like double the damage. Now you can get around these by just letting your characters get killed off one at a time and just resurrecting them, because then the debuff is gone. But it's still like, if you actually didn't do this and just played the rest of the level as perma debuffed, like perma slowed, dude. So we're supposed to find the plant of Rakul, the tail of Rokul, something. Anyways, it's a plant that looks like every other plant in the entire game that we need to eat in order to dip our hand in the pool of healing to bring it back so we can maybe summon again? Now, the game then drops this ball on you. There's not 4 rings, there are 8. There are 4 demon rings and then 4 dragon rings. So the ring of water is in here somewhere. The problem is, finding this plant that you have to eat, when I was a kid, I would get lost for sometimes hours at a time, because it's one of those, like, you come down a hallway and then you have to 180 to go back up the hall adjacent to the one you're just in. But since the game's level layout looks like shit, you can't really tell, and so you just continually go straight because there's another path. There's enemies to fight up there, and since your camera is high, you don't even actually notice that there's like a 180-degree U-turn that you have to take to go up this hill to eat the fucking plant. So we trudge through this bullshit for however long it takes, listening to some pretty lame music at the same time. We finally dip our hand in the pool and we get the blue imp, who sucks. The blue imp specializes in healing and water magic, but when you're not controlling him, he never heals, and he dumps all his mana in one go, and then goes into melee, and guess what? Dies in like 2 to 3 hits. But the good news is that this dungeon is the only dungeon that I can think of in this game that does the Elder Scrolls or Fallout things. So in Elder Scrolls or Fallout, when you go through a dungeon, you get to the end, you get to the chest, you fight the big monster or whatever the case is, there's almost always like a hidden door or like a switch that takes you on a shortcut back to the entrance, so you don't have to walk through the entirety of the dungeon to get out, which this game does 99% of the time, except for here. Bless their hearts. They gave you a switch that opens a door that takes you near to the front. Luckily, you don't have to fight anything because you probably have already killed everything to get here, and you can finally leave. This takes me to my favorite level of the game. So after we leave, we find out that the Jade Society, the original rulers of Arenia, have revolted and taken back Wolong from the Iranians. But they're trapped because they only got up to the fortress where we are and are now in trouble. So we need to help them retake Wolong. We get intro to a really badass group of green-colored samurai and their monk leader, and he tells us to aid his army into retaking Wolong from the Iranians. So we charge with our brave brothers down the mountain and fight the Iranians with them. Unfortunately, the game doesn't let us heal them, which is a shame because they die pretty quick, and it always hurts my heart when I lose one of these brave boys in battle. But it's a really thematic and unique take on the combat so far. They do bug out quite a bit. Sometimes they'll turn around, go all the way back up the castle, only to either freeze in position or decide to come back down, like their AI's resetting, that they're supposed to be going down this linear path. But anyways, we fight all the way down and lose all of our brave samurai by the bottom of the bridge here. We make it to the beach, and we have our boss fight with General Pagian. Now, this is one of the more unique boss fights in that you have options. There are 3 ways to beat Pagian. 1, you can fight him fairly, which is kind of hard. He's pretty tough, and he does curse, and he fucks your shit up. 2, trip and backstab and kill him in 1 hit. Whatever. Or 3, the cheesy way. Now, if you know me, I loves me some cheese. So what I did when I was a kid, because I was a huge coward, still am, I would aggro Pagian, who would easily kill off my party members and my summon, and I would run back up the fortress. When you run back up, he follows you really tight, so you got to be really clean on your movements through this area. Sometimes an Iranian or 2 will follow you as well. Lead him all the way back up the fortress, back up to the base camp of your green samurai. Once you get back up there, they are still programmed to fight Iranians, which he is one. So the entire gang pulls out their swords, the mage even gets involved, and they all just gangbang the shit out of General Pagian, and they murder him super fast. His loot still drops on the beach, though, because they expected you to stay there. I always like this idea. Like Elder Scrolls, the same thing. If you get into a tough fight, or maybe when the dragons come in Skyrim, the town guard, help you out. This feels like it's like that. So there we go. Another huge villain, gone as fast as we met him. I think we met him, less than 20 minutes ago, and he's already dead. Which is a shame, because he says nothing here. He doesn't even have a monologue, an evil leader speech. Come on, guys. So we stand victorious over the ruins of Wolong, and we find Jakar. He's decided to leave Galien because it turns out she's a traitor and is actually in league with Sornahan the entire time and the demons, and is now ruling over the ruins of Lanel. He gives us the Ring of 4 Winds, which allows us to summon my favorite and arguably the only really good summon in this game, the Celestial Samurai. So the Celestial Samurai is just a detextured samurai model, which is a little bit lazy. A lot of the summons you get in this game are just detextured versions of monsters that you already fight. Detextured in the sense that, yeah, he's glowy and he kind of shines, and some of the other monsters have a little shimmer to them, but they're just flat textures with a filter on top. It's a bit lazy, but I don't know. I still think the samurai is pretty cool. He even has the same voice lines as the samurai enemy. The reason I like him is he has strong resistance to physical damage, but he gets nuked by magic. So if he takes 1 flame dart, he's down. But at the same time, he actually can hold his own in a combat. When you use him too, he has some decent chains, like Chain Bless and Chain Empower. That's if you use it manually. If you set it to auto, sometimes he'll just Chain Bless 15 times in a row, which doesn't stack, so he doesn't actually get that much stronger. He's not very big either. He's the size of a human, so it's kind of like having a normal 5th party member with you. He's essentially the summon I'm going to be using almost exclusively from now on. The dragon rings, as you'd expect, are home to dragons, so instead of a second summon like the original rings do, these dragon rings allow you to summon dragons. Now, dragons sound cool on principle, but they're essentially like a Final Fantasy summon nuke spell, if that makes sense. You can summon the Dragon of 4 Winds, but all he does is it takes you to a really awkward cutscene with your characters standing in the abyss, and then he blows fire or poisons a bunch of enemies. It has a very big area of effect, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Even when I leveled the 4 Winds Dragon up, he didn't seem to do all that much damage. He's necessary for 1 side quest where an enemy is immune to all damage except for a summoned dragon, but they're just not very useful. And it nukes your entire mana supply, and it halves Joseph's health, even though he does get it back when it leaves, I think. So I don't use the dragons all that much. After Jakar gives you the 4 Winds ring, you wonder, is this it? Is he going to come back into the party, or is he going to take his leave of the game because he hates you so much? And he does bring it up one last time. I think he says, I came here to kill you, Joseph, but I'm not. Because then I wouldn't be a member of the party for the rest of the game. And that's it. This story's done. So, we're going to have another rant about side quests, because after completing this, we get a whole slew of new side quests to do. Wolong essentially becomes our new hub from now on, our Linnell, if you will. Luckily, it's just this one small village area, but the developers of the game thought they hadn't wasted your time enough, so they've turned it into rubble. I mean, it makes sense. It was just attacked and sieged by 2 different armies at this point, so there's a lot of broken pillars and houses that are collapsed and shit, but they block off certain streets of this town, forcing you to go all the way around this one route if you want to go to the back of the village. And they spawn all these goddamn quest NPCs, either hidden in people's backyards or like in behind rubble or like fence lines, so you have to fucking like go behind this person's backyard, through this archway, underneath this pile of rubble to find this one person who's missing his goddamn hat. Now we get a literal Exodia quest here. You talk to an architect in the town square, and he says that the statue of the former emperor Gaudi has been destroyed in the fighting. So you need to find his head, his 2 arms, and his 2 legs. Literally Exodia. So it was damaged in the fighting. You would expect that most of the pieces would be somewhere in Wolong. Wrong. The head, I think, is next to a lamppost out by the coast. And the 2 legs, I believe, are found in Liangshan, the next level, which makes no sense how they turned up there. But even more so, the 2 arms, or the 2 remaining pieces, whatever they were, are located in, just take a guess. Humor me. That's right, the Caverns of Wong. And deep in the Caverns of Wong. So just like, do the math with me here. The statue was said to be destroyed in this fighting scenario that we just got through, which we just came out of the Caverns of Wong to initiate the battle. So in this fighting, 2 pieces of a statue, which I'm assuming are rather heavy, were picked up and carried off into the Caverns of Wong, past the Blue Minotaurs, past the skeletons, into this ruined village and dropped on the floor. And the other one is even deeper. You go past these other skeletons, past these wizards, into like this lake next to a river, into the maze, and the first corner in the maze is the other piece of the statue. Like, why would they make you go back into the caverns? You just came out of there. How in the name of all that's good and holy in this world did these 2 pieces of statue turn up in the Caverns of Wong? Now you might argue, Admiral, maybe this battle wasn't where the statue was destroyed. Maybe he was referring to a battle 100 years ago. Okay, sure, but I was just in there anyways. So who the hell moved the statue pieces in the time that I was in there murdering all these fucking bony boys and on the way out? Who took these pieces and put them in these 2 specific spots for me to find? It's ludicrous. And nobody, I guarantee you, nobody went back into the Caverns of Wong to find these last 2 pieces. Because after Liangshan, the next mission you go to after that, you're done. You're done with Irenia. You never come back. So you don't even, you might think that the next part after Liangshan is going to be where these 2 pieces are, because you find 2 pieces in Liangshan. Anyways, I'm saying it too much, but at the end of the day, this is one of the most blatant examples of nonsensical logic when it comes to the side quests in this game. A statue was destroyed in a combat that you initiated, and the pieces to this puzzle are back inside the cavern you just came out of. Like, come on. The other side quest that you might or might not find here is the quest of Along and the Cat. So, when you're walking into the wilderness, you might come with a random encounter where you see a fella running away. You talk to him, he says he's being chased by a cat that he thinks is death. The only way he escapes is by telling the cat a joke, and the cat laughs for so long it gives him a chance to run away. Whatever. It's an interesting kind of concept for a quest, other than, oh, there's a monster, kill it. So, you are tasked with finding a way to distract the cat. So, you can either talk to the guy in town who sells jokes. He tells you to find pieces of bark from the forest of Liangshan. The bark apparently is super chewy. The cat will chew the bark forever and never think to chase the man ever again. I don't know. This quest doesn't really make a whole lot of sense lore-wise, but whatever, they're trying. But then you have to find the cat. Now, the cat is in a separate random encounter, and it's not... So, when you get to most of the random encounter quests, The NPC is usually the first person you see. You jump into the area and you'll see a guy with a pink exclamation mark above his head walking towards you or walking away from you, and you go up and you chat with him. Okay, good. But the cat is hidden behind combat in another random encounter. So you have to find 2 random encounters, twice each, in order to complete this quest. You need to talk to Alang, get the bark, go back to Alang and give him the bark. You have to talk to the cat, go and give him the bark to the cat as well. Now, you could do the cat, I think, in one step, but anyways, I spent about 40 minutes on stream walking around in circles trying to find this fucking cat. Just like real life, I spent so much of my life searching for pussy. Never found it. I did find it eventually. I had to start save scumming because every time I entered an encounter, you needed to fight your way out because it never spawns you near the border of the encounter. So you have to keep fighting in order to get out. And you can't get out, you can't just run out because it'll say, oh, there's hostile monsters nearby, and they all get aggroed in your position. So I spent about an hour looking for this cat, and I kept finding Alang. I must have found Alang 4 to 5 times in a row before I would even find an area to talk to the cat. This is where the game should have disabled the encounter with Alang. He's done. There's nothing left to learn from this quest. You've completed your part. You've given him the bark. He's good to go. Done. He should never come up again. All it's doing is just wasting my time in order to find this cat. Okay, so I finally find the cat. What's my reward? 1,000 experience. That's it. 1,000 experience. So all in all, you get 1,000 from the cat, you get 1,000 from Alang, and you think you get 1,000 from the fisherman. 3,000 experience. Killing one samurai gives you like 2,400 experience. So where's the logic in that? The walkthrough says you get an axe for completing this quest. That's only on the PlayStation 2. It's not on the PC. And the axe is garbage anyways because it's outclassed by the time you get it. It's just little things like this, man, just grinds my gears. Like, I truly do adore this game, but quests like this and my completionist habits it just tears me apart inside because I spend so long wasting time. I guess you could argue, yeah, I'm getting experience for fighting these monsters and stuff, but it's not very fun combat. All for 3,000 experience points. Woo! Whoop-de-doo, Basil. But we're not done grinding random encounters yet, because there's a desert biome in this game. The only place this appears, and there's nothing important there story-wise. There's a couple side quests you can do that you might not realize is there. So there's a Tattle the Wanderer. Some person in Iona gives you a super side quest, and you might happen upon him here in the desert. They don't tell you that he wanders in a desert. If they did, that would make it better to find him, but you just find him per chance. The other is a series of shopkeepers, one of which is very important because he sells you the most overpowered weapon in the entire game, the Debasser. Now, the Debasser is a one-handed, 75 damage, 1-speed, blunt mace that you can wear with a shield. And it completely nullifies every weapon in the game after that. It's fast, it's blunt, it does insane damage, and with every enemy being weak to blunt, you're laughing, bro. You never have to use another weapon after this other than like bows if you want bow characters. This is an example where you can tell it was obviously animated for like so each class of weapon, like one-handed and two-handed, are all the same animations because he wields this mace like a sword. Like he holds the mace from the head, which is always awkward, and he stabs with it like he has a sword. Like every two-handed weapon, whether it's a hammer, an axe, a naginata, or a claymore, they always wield it the same way, and they do these awkward like swings. Doesn't help that every character's walk cycle in this game looks like they're running with a dump in their pants. Jakar's the worst for this. So, the next level is the Liangshan Forest, where we need to find the Ring of Forest, evidently. So the Liangshan Forest has some cool lore to it too. So apparently a swamp monster was fighting with the dragon of the forest, and each drop of blood from the monster dripped onto the ground and outsprouted like a cursed haunted tree. And eventually the village got overrun and it was surrounded by Oni, or demons, I think, in Japanese mythology. So we need to travel through this long, windy, grindy forest in order to get to the Ring of Forest at the end. The stupid part of this level is that there's a cloud of poison throughout the entire map. So your characters are perma-poisoned the entire level, which means you're consistently having to cast either Vitality or Heal individually on all your characters. All the enemies in this are the same 2 or 3 variants of different Onis that are all super tanky. They're not a huge threat, and they're just annoying to fight. And they drop horrible loot. The map itself, though, is quite ominous and kind of creepy, and the music suits the vibes as well. But the whole frustration of being poisoned the whole time and just grinding out like dozens upon dozens of these enemies is just so stupid. This place has a lot of Exodia pieces too from other random quests and other like fetch quest items here as well, so you better search every corner of this place thoroughly. About halfway through, we come across a bridge and we fight two of the riders at the same time from before, and it looks like you put them down for good because they actually physically die and drop loot. Pretty good loot, might I add. At the beginning of this forest, you see an army camp that looks like it's been destroyed with dead bodies all over the place, except for one soldier, a new model. You've never seen this soldier before. You talk to him and he says Murad's army is going to attack the temple of the forest. Okay, so do they not get poisoned when they come through this place? So we get to the end and we talk to the priest. We warn him that the army is coming. Oh my god, a whole army is coming and a whole new general's name dropped, but it's inconsequential because he doesn't actually matter. He's just a reskin of the other enemies and has the same health and stats. So we gotta prepare. We got a battle in our hands. A whole army is coming? 6 guys. 6 or 8 guys. I think there's 3 waves. 1 is a scout, 2 is 2 guys, and then like 6 guys turn up. They're cool models, though, and they have their own like sound effects and stuff, but they're never seen again. They're never seen before this either. It's a shame. They reuse so many models and so many monsters in this game, and they have these brand new, really cool, unique ones, and they never use them. So we killed this vast army of like 8 guys, including the general. What's kind of cool, though, is the priest that's watching over the temple fights with you in this combat. The first time I played it on the stream, he actually died in the battle, and I reloaded, but I never stopped to think of whether or not I could have completed the quest, because he's supposed to give you the Ring of Forest. I wonder if you could have still looted it from the altar, or maybe he drops it in a package, but either way, it's a neat feature. So with the Ring of Forest, we get the Poison Elemental summon, and the Poison Elemental is this cool like cobra thing that poisons enemy on hits, and he sucks, so we never use him after this. We need to wrap up everything else we need to do here in Aurenia, because the next level we go to is the Point of No Return. You do get another side quest in Liangshan that requires you to throw some girl's box down a hole, and it's supposed to cure her of her demon skin. Now, they don't tell you this, but after you throw the box in the pit, the demon actually comes to belong for you to finish the quest. But they put her as a completely new model, a human model, and they put her in this person's backyard behind like this corner of the house. So I didn't even know this person existed. I thought that just throwing the box down the well would finish the quest. But no, she gives you actually a pretty decent reward for your troubles. Huh. Couldn't have put her in the front gate or near the exit or near everything else. We also talked to a samurai here in the town, and we get Durgan's earring. Finally, after so many years, we have finally got Durgan's earring in hand. Too bad the demons have destroyed all the cities in Medivh. He might not even be there. So we attack the Imperial Palace. We fight the other 2 riders here, some lame bodyguards, and then we meet with Murad, finally. After 2 acts of this game, we finally meet the inciting incident of this entire game. Murad, the evil emperor, the usurper, who's building a tower to heaven to fight the gods. And he just gives you a typical maniacal, I will conquer the world speech.
But I shall become the lord of all creation.
And then we spank him pretty quick. He's got 2 phases. One is a human wizard who just teleports all over the place, which is kind of annoying. And another as this weird, like, demon thing with eyeball. It's like a Resident Evil monster. And he has Hihachi shoes, which I always find kind of funny. But we spank him in 2 minutes, and we collect the loot, and we get the Jade Ring, which allows us to summon the Jade Golem. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, a golem? My Admiral. Yes, he's a reskin of a golem you fought in the Gosani mines. And yes, he's so slow, again, super weak. He does have a really good ability, though, called a Jade Beam. So he shoots this like laser out and it does like 200, 300 damage. But it's just not worth it to summon him. The resources and the time required to bring him into the fight, and odds are he's either going to get killed by the first enemy he fights, or he's going to fall behind when you're running to the next area, and he's just going to die on his own anyways. So, Murad is dead. Aurenia is free from tyranny, finally. We talked to this chick called Aoki, I think her name is, and she just dropped some major bombs on us. It turns out Fleece's mother wasn't murdered by Tancred. She is Fleece's mother, and she is the Empress of Aurenia. And she had an affair with King Bellius, who was the wife of Galien at the time, which means Fleece is the daughter of the King of Medivh and the Empress of Aurenia. This is like a Game of Thrones episode. Major bombs, dude. So, Does that mean that she's actually the heir to the thrones of both Medivh and Aurenia? But she would be a bastard in both cases, would she not? I mean, I guess you could argue, is there bastards in this fantasy world? Because, yes, I would say so, because it's a very European and Japanese-inspired civilizations. You'd think they would have similar. They have kings, dukes, barons, and shit like that. You'd think they would have bastards. They have a bastard sword. So essentially, Fleece is the most important person in the entire planet right now. So we freed Aurenia, and we found the 4 dragon rings. We are ready to return to Medivh and free it from the demons. Aoki and the Jade Society, they stay behind because they argue that they're still supporters of Murad running around. But now that Murad is dead, the demons will invade Aurenia because they had a deal with Murad that they would leave Aurenia alone. These are very diplomatic demons. You'd think for like apocalyptic monsters that just want to eat and destroy everything, they're actually signing documents and papers, leaving Prince Sornahan in charge, leaving Murad and the Aurenians alone. If the Jade Society was okay with just living under the thumb of Murad, then like they would all be alive and well. So we're in the 3rd act, and this is by far the worst act of the game. Usually I just stop playing at this point because nothing is fun from here on out. You're just recycling the same dungeons you've already been to multiple times. If you want to do all the side quests to get the late game gear, you have to do some of these dungeons like 3 times in order to complete them. Linnell and Iona are frozen wastelands. Ikemos is actually untouched, which is fair, I guess. So our only refuge is Sanavar and the Kosani, who are super pissed at us for destroying the original rings because they are the ones who made them. They do have a way to rebuild them, but they need the magic scrolls with the instruction manual from IKEA in order for us to do that. And of course, they were stolen by the priests of Iona thousands of years ago. So off to Iona we go. We come into the Iona monastery and it skips the elevator part because obviously they don't have a golem there anymore, but it doesn't go into this. So Iona is completely desolate, covered in snow, and filled with the undead. It's kind of creepy and cool being here because this place used to have children chopping firewood and monks training with bow staffs, but now all that's left are charred remains of their buildings and corpses strewn about. The music here actually slaps too. It's got a really great balance of hopelessness, but still a little bit upbeat and still makes you want to fight, you know? So we get to the library and who is it? But Yago, the real Yago, the actual Yago. It's kind of like Mad Eye Moody. You think you know him for the entire movie, but when you really use your brain, he wasn't Moody the entire time. So we never have actually met this guy before. He apologizes to Rosalind and says that, lo and behold, the scrolls are not here. So we just completely wasted our time. He says that Gallienne has stolen the scrolls, because remember, she betrayed us from before, and she's back in Linnell. And then he Yoda's out of the story. Like, he just fucks off. This is the first time we've actually met the actual Yago, and maybe he could have some advice for us. The Demon of Darkness was living in his body for years. You don't think he would have had some insight into what the demon was thinking? Maybe his plans? Maybe his shit schedule? Maybe his favorite food? I don't know. He just goes into exile, because he fucked up and was ashamed that he was mind controlled by a literal demon. Like, he couldn't have come and chilled in Kosani at least? You know, maybe we come in and ask him for hints on side quests or main storyline, and maybe give him some intel on what enemies we should fight or how to fight these enemies. No, he just... So Yago's out of the story, and now we have to go to Linnell in order to confront Sornahan and Gallienne to get these scrolls back. Okay, let's talk about Linnell. But before we actually do this, we head to the docks, because lo and behold, Durgan is still here. The Durgan, the guy whose earring we got assigned in day 1 of this game, we finally have it for him. And he waited the entire time. He survived the demon apocalypse. We give him the earring. You get basically a guaranteed level up. If you really want to maximize your playthrough, don't hand in the earring until you get your full party back, because he's at the entrance of Linnell. You just go in, kill like one enemy, and then hand it in, and you get a level up for all 4 of your characters. And you get a claymore, which has like one of the highest damages in the game, but the Debaster's still better, so you don't use the sword. And you can't sell the sword either, but mind you, money's worthless at this point anyways, because all the late game gear you find in the wild as it is. So, oh well. You can tell that they were proud of this quest too, because if you play the game Red Faction 2, which is not the greatest game, there's a part in the graveyard after your team members betray you for some reason. And if you shoot one grave with grenades or an explosive weapon, it opens up and inside is Durgan's earring. And you get a bonus quest completed in that game for finding his earring. So we get to Linnell and the game makes up the most contrived bullshit ever in order to split the party up once again. So Sornahan and Gallienne have set up wards around the city that is specifically tuned to Summoner, so the Summoner can't enter the city without alerting them that he's there. And so we can't use Joseph, the Summoner. Okay, we'll just use Jakar, Roslyn, and Fleece. Well, Fleece can't go in either. Oh, why, you ask? Well, Fleece is the heir to the throne, and Gallienne and Sornahan are expecting her to come and claim the throne. So she's just not going to come at all. Like, the wards aren't designed for her. Of course she's going to come. What the fuck are they talking about? What do they think is going to happen? Do they think she's dead? They obviously don't. They obviously know she's not dead. So, what's the justification here that we can't bring Fleece? She's just going to hang out while we do the rest? And it's not like they go off and do something else to support the cause. Like, oh, while you guys do this shit, Fleece and I are going to go back to Kosani and we're going to do some reading on something. We're going to go learn something about the demons. I don't know, nothing. They literally stand out the front gate and go, good luck. And like, reclaim what throne? There's no people here. There's no throne. All the people are dead. All the houses are dead. What is there to rule? It's like all these evil warlords in all these different games and movies. Like, I always wondered, like, Ganondorf, what was his motivation other than to have the Triforce of Power? Like, he had a castle filled with zombies. Does he like zombies? Don't you think he would like to have citizens in his empire? I don't know. That's just a thought that I had. But what are Sornahan and Gallienne gaining from this situation? They are literally ruling snowy remains of a city. Oh, is it for money? Well, what are they spending money on? There's nothing here. Everything's dead. There's no merchants. There's no economy. There's no walls to the city, except for the wards they put up. Like, what a stupid way to justify splitting up the party at this point. It would have been better if you were to just be like, okay, how about we split up? You two take the main streets and we will take the sewers. Because guess what? We're going back to the sewers, boy. So now we have two of our weakest, lamest characters, and we have to go through the sewers in order to fight our way to the palace. Now, oh my god. The sewers aren't that bad, but the city of Linnell is filled with dozens of the same two enemies. Well, there's like 3 or 4, but mostly these two, the liches and the mummies. Now, liches are immune to all damage except for blunt and are super weak to magic. Fine. All you have to do is cast like Wall of Fire or Blizzard and they're cooked. But then you have mummies. Mummies are immune to all magic damage, but are really weak to physical. But they cast Curse on hit, which means they punch for like double the damage, because as your characters are hitting them, they get cursed. So we fight through dozens and dozens of these liches and mummies, and I'm talking like you can't go 4 feet without fighting 2 or 3 more of these twats. So we finally get to the palace and confront Sornahan and Gallienne. You fight through a squad of their knights, I guess like trader knights. They're these cool blue and black soldiers that drop really good loot when you fight them, and they're kind of neat. So if you confront the new king and queen, they give some stupid speech about world domination, rah rah. Sornahan is immune to melee damage, but is super weak to magic, and Gallienne is super weak to physical and is immune to magic. So it's like the game's only trick to make an enemy more unique to fight is to make them immune to one type of damage and then vulnerable to another. So after we kill them, we get the scrolls back, and then we go back to the Kasani. Also, side note, if you talk to Gallienne and Sornahan inside the palace before Act 2 and all this shit hits the fan, you might be able to tell that they're going to betray you at some point, because they both have, like, legendary weapons on their persons. Like, Gallienne is literally holding the ice dagger out in her hand, and Sornahan has the Sword of Spirits in his sheath. So, kind of suspicious that these two NPCs would just have, like, weapons ready to go at any time. I think it's just a cute oversight that the devs probably missed. Hand in the scrolls, and they give us some of the original rings again. Fire, stone, and light. The only problem is they're so power crept by now because they're the same power level they were back in Act 1. So we've basically played 2 entire acts of this game without these summons. And you don't feel like leveling them up because they're still so weak. You've been using the samurai or any of the other summons more so anyways. And it's a shame because some of these summons are really cool. I'd love to use the Blade of Urath, but he still has like 100 health, and now enemies are dealing like 400 damage to it at a time. It doesn't help that every enemy you fight basically from now on is undead and either immune to melee or immune to magic damage. So with these rings, we need to capture the demons again. And we do that by doing the Pokemon route. We fight them, we weaken them, and then we suck them in with our rings. And the very first demon, the Demon of Fire, is right here in Sanavar. We go right through the labyrinth, which we'd already gone through. It is a little different now because there's a couple extra pieces of rubble and the puzzles are already broken, but it's the same goddamn dungeon, and you just fight through a bunch of enemies, and the Demon of Fire goes down easy enough, and you fight him in the same location as the Fire Salamanca too. Couldn't even give him a different room, for Christ's sake. And now we had to go back through Iona. Again. The first time we cleared Iona, we got told by Yago that the scrolls weren't there, so it was completely pointless. So why would the game make us come through and clear this entire area? Mind you, it's a small area, so it's not that bad, but it's still like, why would I have to clear the area twice in order to get the same thing done? Where was the Demon of Light this entire time? We went into the library. Rosalind had a cry. She was sad because she didn't get to see the books in all their glory. Was the demon just like jerking off in the corner? Like, we come back here and the demon is all of a sudden in the library. We fight him and we break the physics of the game, but it just annoys me that couldn't have Yago have just been in Sanavar the entire time? He could have told Akosani about the Demon of Darkness, mind controlling everything and puppeteering the whole shenanigans, and they probably wouldn't have been as mad at us. But no, we have to fight through the level again. Fight through the same enemies again. Actually, they're even harder now because you have these like Bone Lord guys who have like scorpion rope hand thingies that do like crazy damage. These guys are actually pretty tough. But we fight the Demon of Light, we capture him, and then we move on to Ikemos. Now, Ikemos hasn't changed at all, but luckily they have added a side entrance to fight the demon. See, the demon's pretty big, so he couldn't be put in anywhere in the other parts of the palace because he wouldn't fit, obviously. So there's only one area in that dungeon where there's a wide, like, waterlogged canal that you can fight him in. So you can skip a lot of the dungeon by doing this. So let's just do the math here for a second. So the entire time we've been in Act 3, we have done 4 dungeons, I call them dungeons, that we've already done before, one of which twice. Yes, some of them have snow in them, but they couldn't have come up with new areas for you to explore, or maybe different parts of the areas we've already been to. Like, what are the odds that one of the demons, being stone, wants to go to the Palace of Ikemos? Now, Ikemos, again, it is quicker to get through, but the enemies here are all stone. Like, there are statue models, like the same one that we fought with Batman back in Linnell, and they are literally immune to all damage except for blunt. So, if you didn't bring debassers when you came in here, you're gonna have a bad time. With all this, we finally get back the Ring of Darkness. Now, there's been an Exodia quest that's been ongoing for quite a while now, called the Secrets of the Nuva Serene, I believe. Throughout the entirety of the 3 acts, you might have been collecting unidentified pages. Now, these are pages to the Book of the Dead, or whatever mummy reference you want to insert there. Now, if you collect all 8 of these pages, it gives you a secret summon. Now, once you collect all these pages, you need to find 3 random encounters with a person to talk to, a boss to fight that's immune to literally all damage except for dragons, and then a third person to talk to, in which case you are teleported back to the Jade Palace where you fought Maraud. You fight all 4 riders at the same time, although they have the same stats they already did, and they drop the same loot that they did, which is a little lazy, so you can kill them really quick, and they drop the same loot that's already outdated by this point. But with this, you get the reward of the Spirit of Lahara, a detextured model of one of the only monsters you fought in Liangshan. He has a scythe. This summon is actually interesting. He can cast death on hit, and he's really fast, but he aggroes to every enemy in the entire map, it seems. So you'll fight your first mummy, and this fucker will hoof it off and fight the next enemy, getting into a combat that you might not necessarily want to get into. He goes down in a few hits too. He's not bad, but the Celestial Samurai's just been more robust at this point. So the equipment in this game is so imbalanced as well. They are fixed apparently in the equipment mod, but we're not talking about that today, guys, okay? So for some weapons, for example, the Assassin's Crossbow, for one, it's unidentified, and you can't identify it until you buy it. So you have to invest a shitload of money into a weapon that might be garbage. Spoilers, it is. So the Assassin's Crossbow has a chance to cast death on hit. Ooh, that sounds cool. Instant death to whatever it hits. Well, you need to hit the target first. So there's a chance that your bolt might miss. And when it does hit, it then has a chance of casting death on the hit. And then there's a chance for the death to actually activate. The enemy can roll like a defense roll, I guess, to prevent the death, which is most likely going to happen, especially when 90% of the enemies you fight in this game are already fucking dead. So look at all the RNG dice rolls you need to do to get one proc of death. You need to roll a dice to hit, roll a dice to cast death, and then roll another dice for that death to work. And to balance this out, they've made the crossbow do like 25 damage, which is hilariously low. Bows are already pretty underpowered in this game as it is, but this is embarrassing. And because blunt is the best attack type anyways, there's no point in using all these other weapons and gear that you get, which is a shame, because some of them are pretty cool and pretty unique. The armor and stuff is super imbalanced as fuck because, like I said, the chainmail suit that you get in Act 1 is still actually pretty good now. And I think the cause of that is a lot of the late game armors are like a suit, so it's like the chest and the legs put together. But the chainmail is a chest, and then you can get the chainmail pants. So you get to add the stats of defense together as opposed to just the flat rate that the suits get. They do look decent though, but with a lack of helmets. So this is it. The end game. We have one more boss to fight, but there's one last side quest that I need to bitch about. So indulge me, if you please. After you've captured 3 of the 4 demons, another quest NPC spawns in Kosani. Off to the left over here, or the left over here, depending on where I put it in my green screen. This knight spawns an location that you would never go back to because it's next to the labyrinth entrance, which you've already been down twice and fought the fire demon. So unless you felt like going back into an empty labyrinth, why would you ever go over here? All of the other side quests that you get in this area and all of the shopkeepers are all located behind this big pyramid. So you would just expect that that's where all the quest NPCs to spawn would be, around. This quest NPC spawns over here. So, on the off chance that you do find this quest NPC, it's literally before the final act or the final chapter of the game, going back to Lanelle. Yippee! This is a female knight, and I think it's the same lady that you escorted earlier on, and she says that there's a creepy girl that she's looking for, she's had dreams about, and she wants you to find her. It's like her divine quest, so we're going to do all the work. You just sit there and just wait, bud. Don't you worry about it. Don't you bother yourself. I'll take care of this for you. The problem is, the kid is in Lanelle, and I'm talking deep in Lanelle. So, in order to complete this quest, we need to go back to Lanelle, go back to the sewers, go back to the marketplace, go back to the Crown District, and at the very end of the Crown District is the little girl. She's some creepy, like, I don't know, angelic being. She says a bunch of vague, like, religious shit, and then she disappears, and that's the end of the quest. Now we have to go and complete it. So we have to go back to the night in Kosani, which means we have to go back to the Crown District, back to the marketplace, back to the sewers, back to Kosani. We talk to her. Hooray, we found her. The divine quest is complete. What is your reward? I needed to double check this because I actually didn't believe it when I remembered it. The reward is 15,000 experience. And that's it. That's it. 15,000 experience points. Each one of these liches that you kill gives you like 4,900 experience points when you kill them. You get over 200 XP just for getting to the little girl. Every other side quest okay, so there's a lot of other bullshit side quests you have to do here, but some of them actually give you some late game gear, like the nobleman's suit or the summoner armor, shit like that. You'd expect this quest, which forces you to fight through the entirety of the final dungeon of the game, would give you something somewhat useful. But no, you barely get anything. And then the character just goes, thanks, I guess I'll go fuck myself. So if you were a completionist and you wanted to complete this whole game, 100%, you would have to go through Lanelle 3 times in order to finish all the assorted quests that are found within, story and sidewise. Because in order to fight the Demon of Darkness, we have to go back through the outskirts, back to the sewers, back to the marketplace, back to the Crown District, back through the entrance of the temple, and we finally fight the Demon of Darkness. You fight him in 3 stages. One where he takes control of the Ura statue and he flies up to these balconies, which is a real pain in the ass, and it's probably why they designed this temple to look like this shit in the first place. And you have to run up these temples and fight him, and then he goes back down to the middle. But in these staircases spawn two, I think they're called Death Knights. And these knights are purple and black. They're kind of cool. But they have a chance of casting sleep on hit. When your characters go to sleep, they can't do anything. You can't even switch characters if all 4 of your characters are asleep. And then they just wail on you. Every time, if they do hit you, you wake up. But they have a chance to cast sleep on you again. So they can chain sleep you, and you literally have to sit on your ass and just accept your fate. And they respawn infinitely and really quick. So by the time you kill one and then get to fighting the second one, as he's about to die, the first one respawns. So then you're in this infinite fucking loop of fighting these Death Knights while the Demon of Darkness is palling around watching his favorite reruns of Full House up in the corner. So we kill the first form, and then he transforms into a mirror image of Joseph, Shadow Link. You trip and backstab him, kill him in one hit, and then we fight him in his demon form, which is fairly uneventful, to be honest. We finally slay him, and we get a really choppy cutscene because the game is not programmed well for modern systems, where the Forge of Urath is no longer a hand, but now like a swimming pool with fire, and we are instructed to jump into the fire. So between the burning our hand off and going to Orenia and then coming back, the Demon of Darkness did some refurbishing on the basement and took the stone hand out and made it to a swimming pool. So now we actually have a choice. We can jump into the fire, sacrificing ourselves, forging all 8 rings, and becoming a literal god, the reincarnation of Urath, I think, or we can fuck off. There's 2 different endings. All it essentially boils down to is, do you jump or do you leave? You have one last conversation with all your party members here, but they don't say anything very important. I think they literally just regurgitate the same shit that they said from the beginning. I thought I hated you and I was going to kill you, Joseph, but we're best buds now. I didn't want to join you, but I was mad at my dad, and now we're best buds. I'm sorry I betrayed you. I'm the queen of the entire planet. I'm basically Sylvanas, but we're best buds. So if you jump into the pit, you become the literal god of gods, and you do godly things. Fleece becomes the ruler of the planet, Rosalind reopens the monastery, and Jakar becomes the new Duke of Tarimon. If you leave out the front door, the same things happen, but Joseph is homeless and just wanders around as a beggar. No matter your choice you make, you'd best stick around until after the credits. This is before the Marvel days of mid-credit scenes and end-credit scenes. Back in these days, when you beat a game, you were usually rewarded with something like cheat codes or a new game plus. And when you finish watching the credits, you get rewarded with something that's truly special. In fact, I'm just going to let it play for you in its entirety, and then we can talk about it after.
Gallstaff, you have entered the door to the north. You are now by yourself, standing in a dark room. The pungent stench of mildew emanates from the wet dungeon walls.
Where are the Cheetos?
They're right next to you.
I cast a spell.
Where's the Mountain Dew?
In the fridge, duh.
I want to cast a spell.
Can I have a Mountain Dew?
Yes, you can have a Mountain Dew. Just go get it.
I can cast any of these, right? On the list?
Yes, any of the first level ones.
I'm gonna get a soda. Anyone want one? Hey, Graham, I'm not in the room, right?
What room?
I want to cast Magic Missile.
A room where he's casting all these spells from.
He hasn't cast anything yet.
I am, though, if you'd listen. I'm casting Magic Missile.
Why are you casting Magic Missile? There's nothing to attack here.
I'm attacking the darkness.
Fine. You attack the darkness. There's an elf in front of you.
Whoa!
That's me, right?
He's wearing a brown tunic, and he has gray hair and blue eyes.
No, I don't. I have gray eyes.
Let me see that sheet.
Well, it says I have blue, but I decided I wanted gray eyes.
Whatever. Okay, you guys can talk to each other now if you want.
Hello.
Hello.
I am Gallstaff, Sorcerer of Light.
Then how come you had to cast Magic Missile?
You guys are being attacked.
Do I see that happening?
No, you're outside by the tavern.
Cool, I get drunk.
There are 7 ogres surrounding you.
How could they surround us? I had Mordenkainen's magical watchdog cast.
No, you didn't.
I'm getting drunk. Are there any girls there?
I totally did. You asked me if I wanted any equipment before this adventure, and I said no. But I need material components for all my spells, so I cast Mordenkainen's faithful watchdog.
But you never actually cast it.
Roll the dice to see if I'm getting drunk.
Yeah, you are.
Are there any girls there?
Yeah.
I did, though. I completely said when you asked me.
No, you didn't. You didn't actually say that you were casting the spell, so now there's ogres, okay?
Ogres? Man, I got an ogre slaying knife. It's got a +9 against ogres.
You're not there. You're getting drunk.
Okay, but if there's any girls there, I want to do them.
I remember almost throwing up when I was a kid at how much I was laughing at this. I love the Demon of Light in the background. It kind of makes me wish that they kept going or made more episodes of this. What a cute and charming way to utilize characters from not only this game, but from Red Faction as well. There's a lot of little hidden Easter eggs with the dolls and the toys, and having an old Tor security guard even before, I guess, the game came out is a cool little nod. And if you're paying attention and you look at the credits afterwards, you will see Dan Harmon. As in Dan Harmon, the co-creator of the show Community, in which they had a really terrific Dungeons & Dragons episode, or Dan Harmon as in the co-creator of Rick and Morty, or Dan Harmon as in the co-creator of Harmon Quest, an animated version of his real-life Dungeons & Dragons adventures. Like, holy shit, was this his first attempt at doing a Dungeons & Dragons themed comedy bit? Because this is like one of the best ones he's done. How crazy is that? I never thought I would see this guy's name on something like this little old project. A game from the PS2 from 2000. Like, that's amazing. So there we go. Summoner. A tedious, boring mess. But I love it. I keep going back to it and I keep hating it all over again. It's like I'm a battered housewife and I just can't escape the relationship. Now, I know nostalgia plays into this a lot, and I'm actually curious, if you play this for the very first time now, how does it stack up? Because I honestly don't think it does. And there's a reason for that. Nobody's talking about it today. Did you know that this game has a sequel? Because I sure shit didn't until I was like 20. It's a PlayStation 2 exclusive, and I hate it. I bought it on eBay, and I played it, and I hated it. I hated it because it was like a completely different game. It was a completely different character in a completely different area, in a completely different time, in a completely different art style, and your character doesn't even summon. Your character transforms into the creature. This game should be called Druid. And since it was a PS2 exclusive, the graphics aren't very good or very clear, and I couldn't really get into it, and I just hated the fact that everything was different. Like, you didn't have the same Japanese Iranians or the medieval Medivans. You had these fish people and these weird, like, exaggerated, like, body part things. Anyways, it was bad. And if you liked it, good for you. But like, I can't see how appealing this would have been, especially if it was coming right off of Summoner 1. If this was just a standalone game called Druid, hey, maybe it'd be all right. And maybe I should play it again just to see. In my old age, maybe it's aged better, but I can never get past like the third chapter. For example, like the Hierophant of Mediva is in this game. Now, this is what the Hierophant looks like in Summoner. He's like a pope, basically. This is what he looks like in Summoner 2. So now he's some sort of gimp or like BDSM guy. Kind of looks like Shinnok. So to sum up my thoughts on this game, I really love the world that they've built. The whole Japan versus medieval Europe type of situation, the monsters that you can summon. I like a lot of the models besides your faces, and I like the combat's a little boring, but it's manageable. It's not too over the top, and it's not too, because I'm not a big like pause game RPG guy. I kind of like being in the action. The lore behind the game is actually solid, and I feel like if you were to remake this game, I don't think it should be remastered. First of all, the game is too rough to be remastered, unless they were to update some of the systems. If they were to remake this game from scratch, a party-based RPG where you could summon monsters to hang out with you in towns, please, and give you helmets, I'd say the world would be interesting enough for people to enjoy. As it stands right now, it is a forgotten game for a reason, and it's very average, like 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 for the music. Give these characters helmets, you're getting a 6.5, big boy. So there we go. That was Summoner. This took a long time to make because I'm lazy as shit, and I don't know if this is going to work. So let me know if this format works for you in the comments, and maybe I'll do another one. If you got this far, thank you so much, and thank you for all the support, and maybe I'll see you on the next one.